lifestyle. Sports cards and we live now. Jeremy Lee in the building and every guest that you ever needed. Sports cards after hours keep the hobby heated. Updates, hobby talk like you never seen it. Sports cards live and none could ever beat it. Sports cards is a lifestyle. Sports cards and we live now. Welcome to another episode of Sports Cards Live with your host, Jeremy Lee.
All right, what is up, everybody? Welcome to episode number 246 of Sports Cards Live. It is Saturday night, November the 16th, 2024. My name is Jeremy Lee. Everybody, tomorrow night here on the channel, the Fanatics Collect weekly hockey auction ending watch party with Josh Madigan from The Gong Show is back. Also, this Monday is the MC Mondays Showcase Live, coming with 78 high-end cards. That's going to be an amazing show. And on Tuesday is the Fund Your Cards show. We'll be live with Mark Sadov, founder of Fund Your Cards, and special guest Rodman Martinez. He is Rodman PC on Instagram. Also, coming up on Thursday is the Fanatics Premier Auction Watch Party with Adam Gray, and we will have a fresh batch of this or that. So join us on Thursday here on the channel. Guys, Filth Bomb Breaks offers live case and box breaks, and they do so with responsibility and integrity. If you enjoy box breaks and you're looking for a company to break with, check out Filth Bomb, streaming on Fanatics Live on 4 channels, 7 days per week. And if you're looking to add a grail to your collection, as I just mentioned, Fund Your Cards, check them out. They are the hobby's leading consolidator. They will help you finance a purchase with your own cards. Visit fundyourcards.com and join us for the Fund Your Cards show coming up here on Tuesday. And finally, Mint Inc. is the leading hobby brand in Canada. They offer a full range of services from in-person shopping and live event experiences at their 2 Toronto stores to online shopping with worldwide shipping, live streaming, auctions, breaks, grading, and more. Mint Inc.'s primary focus is to bring the ultimate hobby experience to collectors in Canada. And on every episode of Sports Cards Live through the end of the year, we'll be giving away a $50 gift card that is valid on mintink.ca. Guys, check out Hobby News Daily for your daily dose of hobby news, articles, and a podcast. Leighton Sheldon from Just Collect will be joining us a little bit later tonight, and this show is available wherever you get your podcasts. Follow and subscribe for free, Spotify, Apple, everywhere else, and please leave a rating or a review. Greatly appreciate it. And as always, thank you to all of our loyal viewers and listeners, and anybody new, welcome to the show. As always, your comments, your questions are in play. So let's get to the show. We have a co-host tonight, riding shotgun. Let's bring him out. Joe Poirot from Santa Cruz, Cali Dreamin' 84 on Instagram. Joe, how you doing, buddy?
Doing great, Jay Lee. Good to see you. You got the scruff going here, joining the rough and rugged look there.
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. You know, I was nominated by Cage Lawyer as, I know it's tongue in cheek, but as you know, one of the sexiest men in the hobby. Here was his original post where he there's a nominee, Patrick Ryan, P Ryan on Instagram, C Blez, of course. There's me. He nominated me. Got to thank Cage for thinking of me with that. But I like to run with these things, lean into them instead of away from them. So there's Simon Slab. David, he's often in our chat here. I'm sure we'll see him later tonight. C Blez again. He's got them all there. And then, of course, there's the true sexiest man in the hobby right there, Jeremy Lee, Sports Cards Live. Yeah, just having some fun with that, Joe.
Yeah, some stiff competition there. Good luck with that. I don't know when the votes start happening, but I know we've been voting in the hobby for various things, right?
Yeah, no doubt. Guys, Brian Gray is going to join us in about 5 or 10 minutes. He's going to jump on for a few minutes. I did send the link out to a few people. We'll see who is able to come on and join. And if we have some time, we might open it up as well. But let's say hello to the chat. Jake Dahl is here. What's up, Jake? Nick Chen, good evening. The professor is here. Professor, I feel like I haven't seen you as much lately. Glad to see you back. Laura, good evening. Nice to see you. Robert Scott is here. What's going on, Robert Scott? It's great seeing you at the Expo. Lantern Cards, our newlywed, is here. Good evening to you. Bent Dinged Cardboard survived his first Expo. Looking forward to the spring. I will see you there. Foul Ball is here. What's going on, Foul Ball? Jeff McMahon. Good to see you. Ladies man. Good to see you. Mark Santucci. Good to see you. Stooks is here. What's going on? He's a very satisfied Mint Inc. winner. Somebody's going to win $50 to mintink.ca tonight. And I've got the website pulled up. We'll take a look at that as well. Todd McDonald, what's going on? Good seeing you at Expo. Hobby Champs is here. What's going on? Yankees fan. Good to see you. Oh, and the professor reminds me to turn on the Instagram stream. No, I didn't. There we go. I now thank you, Professor, for reminding me to turn on the Instagram feed. Maybe we'll recruit a few people over there to come over here to the YouTube stream over on YouTube. Joe, did you watch the fight last night? Did you watch the Mike Tyson, Jake Paul? Yeah. What'd you think?
I guess I didn't know as much as I should have going in, but I was glad that Tyson survived. And strangely, I felt like, it was maybe more of an event than it was an athletic event, I guess you could say. And kind of brought, I'm exactly Mike Tyson's age. I mean, I'm 58, and so I was kind of rooting for him. But then, after a couple rounds, you could just see the legs were rubber. And so I appreciated it for what it was, which was basically just kind of pomp and circumstance, but not a whole lot of substance.
Yeah, same here. I was rooting for him as well. I kind of was hoping that he'd kind of break out at some point and really throw some punches, but he didn't seem to throw much at all. And I mean, the stats showed it. I think they made a ton of money. Him and Jake Paul both made a ton of money. I heard 40 million for Jake and 20 million for Tyson. So definitely worth their time. But that women's fight right before it was like a deadly fight. Like those two, couple of warriors right there, they did well, but it was still kind of fun to watch him box again, even Mike Tyson, even though he maybe shouldn't be doing that. And he seemed scared. He seemed a little fearful. Like he didn't want to take punches. He didn't ever really start throwing the punches and maybe opening himself up to getting punched by Paul. But I thought, and it was nice to see at the end. It was nice to see Jake Paul show him some respect at the very end. But boy, but he with the bow. But every time the announcer was asking Mike Tyson a question, he got like 4 words out of him, and that was it. Like he was not in the mood to talk. It was a little bit weird that way. But I heard he might have been on mushrooms or something. I don't know.
Really?
Yeah, apparently, I don't know if that any truth to that.
Yeah, I mean, I heard he might have also had a knee issue, which I mean. I don't know if you've ever, I do not box, but occasionally I've, been around some of my friends who box, and you put on the gloves, you do it for 60 seconds and you're as tired as you could possibly be. I mean, it is truly, I want to give him credit for being out there for, even if there were mini rounds, 8 rounds, and just going at it. Like that's an athletic feat in and of itself.
Yeah. 2-minute rounds, lighter gloves, and Anony here says Tyson held back and was paid and told to hold back. It did seem like, well, on one hand, it seemed like he was holding back, but he also seemed like he was exhausted and kind of in a daze. It was very strange. Latrell Sprewell, the American Dream. What's going on? Welcome to the show. Mark Santucci says, knows the Toronto show was great. Saw Jay's mix video. Me interviewing. Yeah, I got to interview Chris Chelios. That was awesome. Yeah, it was a great show, Mark. Love to see you there at some point. Ben Ding Cardboard thinks the Paul Tyson fight was scripted like a WWF main event. I don't know about that, but you never know. I mean, I guess you just never know. Maybe it was. I didn't feel that watching it. I didn't feel like that was the case, but maybe it was. Yitz in the house. What's going on, Yitz? I got one of your auctions up to look at in a little bit here, buddy. I'm on to you, Yitz. I'm on to you. Very nice. Yes, Stukes. He got his golden parachuted for $20 million. No doubt. And Perchy says it was more disappointing with the Netflix issues overall. Yeah, I would just exit out and go back in. It was like right back. So I understand that there was buffering issues, but it wasn't that bad. Like, well, at least for me, it wasn't too bad. Hobby Champ says the loser in the women's fight won easily, rigged outcome. I mean, who knows, right? Like, who knows what these judges are doing, what these judges are seeing. But Expo, Joe, you weren't there. You're down in California, but I got back from Expo. So what's today's Saturday? I got back on last Monday, and I had a great time at Expo. I haven't really talked about it much on any streams I've done because I don't think I've done any streams since I got back. But Expo was a lot of fun. It was in a new room. It's at the Toronto at the International Conference Center, and I got to do a lot of stage work, which was more than I've ever done. I got to interview Chris Chelios, Chris Pronger. I mean, these are Hall of Famers, both great guys that I got to sit on the stage with. I got from the Max Domi, current Toronto Maple Leaf. He was a lot of fun to interview. And then from the non-athlete people, I got to sit down with Dave Ammerman from Golden Auctions, from the King of Collectibles show, and then Dr. Collectible, Daryl Garner, was also someone that I was sitting with on the stage and got to chat with. So that was a lot of fun. The show was super busy, might have been the busiest expo ever. And all the vendors I talked to, Joe, and everybody else, all the vendors I talked to were loving it. Like, they were having a great show. And for me, my inventory maybe wasn't as strong as it had been in the past. So for me, it wasn't as much. I didn't do as much as I'm used to doing, but everyone else did. So I know that it was a great show. I saw it a great show. Don't get me wrong. Some wonderful pickups. Thursday night networking event at Jack Astor's was amazing. We probably had 140 people come through that. I mean, just keeps on getting bigger and bigger and better. So I want to thank everybody who came out to that. I want to thank Upper Deck also for sponsoring the appetizers. We had 3 waves of chicken fingers and chicken wings and chips and guacamole. It was awesome. So that was a ton of fun. The next night, Friday, was the Hockey Cards Gong Show had their first ever rip party, and I went to that, and that was crazy. They were streaming on YouTube. They had over about 400 people watching on YouTube. They gave away like 70 boxes of cards that they opened. These guys had this thing dialed in. It was a ton of fun. Got to do that. Saturday night was the Mint Ink trade night. That was awesome. Super full. If you guys follow me on Instagram, I did live streams from each of those things. Hey, Brian Gray just got here. Let's bring him on, see what he's got to talk about, and I'll come back to Expo. BG in the house.
What up, player?
What's going on, buddy? How you doing?
Oh man, I'm sad I wasn't at the Expo.
Yeah, me too. What? Yeah, you gonna come back there sometime or what?
Maybe sometime. Yeah, I mean, what I'm doing next, which I still can't talk about months and months later, is not hockey related. So I don't know if I'll be there or not. But there's enough other stuff you never know.
Awesome.
But hell, for that sake, I don't see Leaf making hardly any hockey either. So I don't know what's going on there either.
Yeah, I don't think they were there. Hey, speaking of Brian Gray, so you recently did your interview with Bill Mastro, and
yes.
And you had a bit of follow up to that. Talk a bit about that. How was that interview? I know that you went live on Because I'm Carlos's YouTube channel as well. How'd that all go?
Yeah, basically, I had a great talk with Mastro. I am friends with him. I've only been friends for a couple of years, not like we're old friends from decades ago. But, we've been talking for the last couple of years about the card, like as part of just conversation because we're card geeks. And, he's kind of misunderstood because, I don't think people really understood the whole process. And he never really talked in detail. He vaguely with Probstein once, he vaguely talked about it, but he never really got into the meat of it. And I was like, Bill, wouldn't it be interesting just to tell now what happened? Because so many people think that you went to jail and you had all these problems because of the card. And it has nothing to do with that. Because what happened with the card was completely legal. You can decide if you think it's okay or not. That's the biggest discussion ever. But honestly, I wanted people to hear the first hour as much as about the card. Because I think when you hear the guy talk about the hobby and his role in it, it's like O.J. Simpson. You don't have to love what he did at the end, which, this is nothing like that. But he did contribute on the football field pretty substantially, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So, his contribution to the hobby is so extreme. I wanted people to hear that and then let him just tell the story of the card in a way he never has. Because even the book that came out, he kicked those people out after a very short time. He wanted nothing to do with them because it was clear they were just going to write a one-sided smear and not tell the story the way it should be told.
Right.
So I wanted to talk to him about it. And then this Carlos cat, which, whatever, he popped up and said, Brian's just trying to defend his friend and make his friend I don't give a shit. I just want people to talk about it and think about why we think what we do about cards. And, it wasn't always this way. There was a time where, restoration and those things were not the same. And I think it's gotten more aggressive since grading. And as a purist, I don't want my card touched ideally. I want it clean. But as I said in that interview, and I'll say it again, when I add a beautiful 52 mantle to my collection, I would much rather add an authentic altar that looks like a 6 than a PSA 3 that looks like I left it in my pant pocket and put it in the washing machine.
Yeah, for sure.
I'll stand by. I want a beautiful card at the end of the day. And in a world where comic book companies like CGC are pressing comics themselves, like the grading company will press it. I'm not sure where we got to the position we are now that it's taboo to the point where a card is worth $0 when it's been made to look better. And I won't even say altered because I hate cutting and trimming. I hate that. But like if a guy polishes a card, like, I mean, if he uses a substance, now it's a ruined card. It's worth nothing. I just don't know. And I think this is a topic we all should discuss more, really.
Yeah. So let me ask you this, though, because you talked about the card, but he was in jail for, I believe, some sort of, whether it was auction fraud, shill bidding. So why didn't you talk to him about that, or will you in the future? Where do you stand? If he's your friend, where do you stand on that? Because that's obviously not appreciated by the hobby.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. I think the thing was we had initially talked about doing an hour interview. Well, we blew that out the water. We talked for an hour about what happened before 1970, because this guy is like a treasure trove. Like when you start digging, you may be looking for Titanic relics or something, or like some ancient artifact, but if you start finding something else cool on the way, you don't just throw it aside and keep digging. You look at what you're finding along the way. So like we got to 2 hours and it was like, I had to finally start. I mean, I talked way too much in that interview. And I felt like I had to keep it on track because we would have talked for 5 hours. As in person, we probably have talked for 5 hours on multiple occasions. We've sat there and talked for 5 hours at dinner.
I loved BG. I loved it when you were talking to me. You're like, all right, I'm gonna stop talking. I'm gonna stop talking. Bill, Bill, go ahead. And then you'd interrupt them and talk for 5 more minutes. So I mean, I know. You know it. You're aware. BG, you're aware, but you just can't help yourself.
I can't. But if you watch my interview with Jerry Meyer this last week, which was a great interview, I interviewed Jerry Meyer from Pinnacle, and I showed. I mean, I made a monster turnaround. I was the Ted Koppel, Tom Brokaw of our generation. You know, I did a great job. I did not talk very much. I let him finish thoughts. If he said something that skipped ahead, I brought him back. I was like, let's hold that thought for just a minute. I've got that. But I really planned. That was the first time I've ever interviewed him where I planned an outline. I love just conversating. I really don't like planning a discussion because it doesn't feel as natural and organic as if I have like a whole, but for Jerry Meyer, I laid out a plan and I said, I want to hit on these topics because the statute of limitations is over. He can tell me how big Pinnacle was. He can tell me why he declared bankruptcy. You know, he got into that was a great interview. Again, these modern card kids carrying around the Pelican case with 150 grand and they're 12 years old, they don't give a shit about Jerry Meyer. But if you've been around the block since the 90s, that was a big deal. They were the biggest card company in 1997 in the market. They had more revenue than any other card company. And they did 125 million the one year. To put in perspective, the year when I sold Leaf, the year we based our revenue on was nearly 100 million. So like the biggest company in the whole card market was only 25% bigger than Leaf is today. Maybe not today, but when I sold it, you know, so that's crazy, you know? So it's like, but that was a great interview and I shut up. I really learned from the first time and I was like, you know, I'm going to let this guy talk. And he did a great job of expressing himself. He was very honest. He didn't hold back. He talked shit about people. He told people what he hated about the industry, what he loved about the industry. He surprised me when he said there's no place in the market for distributors. It sounds a lot like what we heard from Michael Rubin. Mm-hmm. He fired all his distributors right before he declared bankruptcy because he was like, why do I need these guys? They're worthless.
Right.
That was pretty bold.
That's bold. That is bold. I haven't watched it yet. I'll watch it. I'll definitely.
I'll give you another teaser. He said he thinks what Fanatics did was not only ballsy, but he thinks it's the only way you have a chance anymore. So like he wasn't like out of line with like a lot of people are so anti-Fanatics right now because they think they're going to ruin the world. But like he was pretty, like he was like, I get what they're doing. I think it was genius. I mean, they're mad geniuses over there, and he had the same philosophy. He hired very smart people.
So BG, people want to know when you're going to finally be able to talk about what's happening.
I know.
Listen, you were on with me back in September, I think it was.
And I said, I expect it to be 30 days. I know. What I can tell you is this. I signed my deal. I'm partnering with someone. I'm not working for someone. I'm partnering with someone. I've been getting paid for the last 4 or 5 months. So I've been getting money and I'm behind the scenes getting ready. A small wrench came into how we're going to tackle this because it's a big thing I'm tackling. It's bigger than anyone thinks it's going to be. And so I had to I'm doing some infrastructural things to make sure that I can execute. Because again, having the biggest idea in the world, and it's a great one. I just think if I can't execute, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But All I can say is it will fulfill some of the curiosities and things people have said they hope for decades with me. I'll finally get to do something they've wanted to see me do for a long, long time.
Give us a realistic.
I believe my new enterprise will be up and running in January.
So
I believe we'll announce it slightly before that.
Okay.
I think it'll happen. But again, a wrench came in because I have an opportunity sitting in front of us that we need to look into, and we've been exploring. And I think that'll finish out. But again, there's no reason to do things in pieces. We need to make sure that our plans are together and ready to execute, because this is not a small thing. On day one, it's a bigger project than Leaf was at its prime when we were doing.
All right. I just wanted the timeline, so we'll find out. Now I have to ask you, why weren't you included in Cage's sexiest man in the hobby candidates here? Because I don't know, you would have fit in perfectly.
If you put C-Bluzz in there, you put C-Bluzz in these guys, I give up, But
well, what do you think of that one right there?
I think
there's your winner.
I think
is that your winner?
You're amazing.
That's the way. Hey, Cage is right there. Yeah, you're way too sexy. He says you're way too sexy.
Yeah, I do it with charisma and with talking and with I got Riz. I'm married, but I've had ladies tell me that I'm the Wizard of Oz. And I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what they call me, the Wizard of Oz, because I can sell ice to an Eskimo or anything in between, But yeah, no, listen, it's going to be fun what we're going to do. The interviews have been really fun. Getting Jerry Meyer to talk was a tough one because he answered one interview in writing one time, would never talk in person. And at the Dallas show, I managed to put something together to get him on the air to talk. And so now I think I've opened a couple more doors for people that have stories that are epic. But going back to a Bill
Mastro.
I think we wanted to see what happened in the first interview and how people received it.
So are you saying that you might do a follow-up and
I want to do a follow-up to talk about the shill bidding and the auction, what went wrong? Because I really want to ask him questions. And I told Carlos this too. I really want to ask him questions like, you do understand how you basically stole money from people. I want to ask him that. I want to say, you realize it did financial harm directly to people. It wasn't a victimless crime. You weren't supplying, marijuana to people who are going to use it in the privacy of their own home. This is different. This is one person loses and one person wins. So I wanted to make sure, that have him acknowledge that he knows it was wrong.
Yeah.
B, what was prison like? I want him to tell us what prison was like, because I think for people who were victimized or harmed, I think that's part of the healing process, is to know that A, the person acknowledges they did wrong. B, they did pay a consequence, and it was not a cakewalk. It was not club fed. And C, and I know this part, the man is completely different. He is one of the most amazing people I've ever met. And I mean that in a personal way, nothing to do with the business. He's just an amazing individual. I get cards all the time when he's overseas in the Holy Land praying for me and my family. Just this guy is insanely generous, thoughtful, and I've never done one piece of business with him outside of buying in the auction house. I've never bought one thing from him. He's never bought one thing from me in the last 20 years.
Well, I look forward to seeing that next discussion. I think a lot of people want to hear what he has to say about that. And, I think he kind of, at this point, if he's going to be out there doing interviews, it's maybe something he kind of, listen, he doesn't owe anyone anything, but I think the hobby might feel like he owes that to them.
And I think that's part of the process. And again, if we can get some of these guys just to tell the truth of what happened and what it was, and let us all be a learner from it, cautionary tale in a sense, I think that's good. So that's my hope. And I hope I get some more people that are infamous in the hobby, maybe some of the old Upper Deck employees from the old days, maybe some of the old people that worked other places that can tell us companies where stuff walked out the back door. I want to hear those stories. I'm ready to hear the truth. Now that it's been 20 plus years, I'm ready to start hearing the truth. And I've got a few truths of my own that I'll start spewing out too, but it's 20-year statute of limitations. We can tell the truth about some things, so that'll be fun.
Perfect.
I like your headline at the top. Beckett fraud, Expo recap, Fanatics, Gretzky cards at auction again.
Yeah. Lots going on in the hobby.
I'll be tuning in to hear the Beckett fraud part. I have no idea what that is. I can't wait to hear it.
Well, Greg, what's his name? Lindbergh was just pled guilty to a $2 billion insurance fraud scheme.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, so it's right over here. I'll show you. Let's see here.
I heard something about that. I can't talk about that, but that's interesting. Very interesting.
It's pretty crazy. This is the here. I just want to get rid of that ad. This here is the billionaire Greg Lindbergh pleads guilty to $2 billion insurance fraud scheme. You could read this all and just, billionaire founder of Global Growth. Well, you go to Global Growth, and this is Global Growth. And, this is the website. Companies that make the world a better place are more likely to thrive. And you can see what they're invested in. They have healthcare technology, they have financial services, business services, and looky here, collectible and alternative assets. And there is a Beckett slab right there that I don't think this might be the one that never even got produced. I'm not sure.
Yeah, but I don't love that logo, but yeah.
But there's Beckett right there. They have communications, but so this is just 3 days old or so, I think. 3 days ago.
I can't wait to hear your analysis of it and discussions with people about it, because I think more than just that, what does it mean for the hobby and what does it mean for Beckett? And it's gonna be interesting to hear how people interpret this.
Well, that's what I want to hear. And BG. And that's what I want to hear from people in the chat. What do you think this means to Beckett and to the hobby, to all of our Beckett graded slabs? Does it mean anything? What does it mean to the future of Beckett, or does it mean nothing? I don't know.
Well, yeah, and again, I mean, listen, I don't know. I don't know what it means, but I think it probably means something. I can't wait to hear how people interpret this, or if anyone comes in and and gives some dirt they know or don't know. I don't know. I just think the hobby is I think people are starting to get negative. Like, I see a lot more negative streamers, the streamers and social media guys, the Dan the Card Mans, and all these guys are pouncing on, cards are screwed. And even Neo, who's generally positive, has been very negative. I just think people are getting way ahead of themselves. Their skis are way out in front of them. You see the level of activity. Any market where there's liquidity at 85% of comps is not in a bad place. I'm sorry. I don't care. Now, maybe the repackers are the only ones keeping it like that, but any market where there's 85% liquidation value instantly is pretty good.
Well, the Toronto Expo, Brian, I mean, one buddy of mine told me that, and I won't divulge his name, but he said, he usually doesn't do much. He'll do, $5,000-$6,000 over the weekend. He did $25,000 this past weekend. The business was booming at the Toronto Expo, and there was so much non-hockey there. It was unbelievable how little hockey.
How is hockey, Jeremy? Because I'm hearing that it's kind of okay. Like, it's not in the hottest stage, but it's okay.
Yeah. Oh, it's. I don't know. What's the hottest though? Peak COVID. I mean, what's the hottest? Like,
I don't know. I mean, I guess part of the problem is when you're coming out with products a year and a half late. Like Cup. I mean, that's not ideal. No. You've got a year and a half old product coming out at the same time as Upper Deck 1 almost.
Yeah. They have 3 different seasons of products all coming out within a month or something like that.
Again, I don't think that changes the market a whole lot. It's kind of just they're the only game in town, so it's kind of like it works itself out.
It does. Yeah.
It kind of works. I'm just curious how that market is, because I don't hear a lot about it, but Upper Deck's the only game in town. Leafs making very little product, it seems. A couple items a year, and
Yeah. All right, man. Well, you mentioned that you were just going to come on for a bit. Are you
good? I like the new format, though. Just talking and topical people popping in. I think it's good.
Well, we'll see how it goes. We're going to do that tonight. We'll see what happens. But yeah, man, I appreciate it.
Anytime. I love saying hi. I'm going to go hang out with my wife and watch a little Ted Lasso. I got to finish this season.
All right, buddy. Take care,
guys. Good to see y'all.
Thanks, BG. Yeah. Right on. All right, Joe. That was fun. I mean, Brian Gray, he always brings it, right?
Yeah, for sure. Good job holding court with him. It's not easy. It was like a tennis match, kind of back and forth.
Sometimes I just got to lean into the microphone and overpower him so I can get a couple words in, but it's good to have him. Leighton Sheldon has just popped into the back room. So let's and with Leighton, Joe, what I want to talk about with Leighton, and to everyone in the chat, I'm way behind on comments because, BG was just here. So I see them all, and we'll get to them. We'll get to them, guys. But we're going to bring on Leighton. And with Leighton, Joe, I want to talk about this 1979 O-Pee-Chee unopened case that is back up for auction on Heritage. Leighton, welcome back, buddy. How are you?
Good. How are you gentlemen tonight?
Doing well.
Doing well. See you, Leighton.
I was so happy to normally I just kind of pop on maybe a minute or two before I see what's going on with the show. I don't know. My son was settled, so I figured I would just pop in. Oh, it was great. I got to hear you guys talking with Brian. That was fantastic.
Good, man. And listen, I must say that I was expecting to see you at the Expo, and I got a text message from you like 2 days before saying not going to be able to make it. We missed you there, buddy. We missed you at the Expo. How's everything going?
Oh, everything is well, thank you. I was bummed that I was not able to make it. I will most certainly be there for the spring, but I'm very happy to hear what you were saying is that, a buddy of yours did really well. In general, I heard similar sentiment that the show was excellent. And, let's be clear, right? You said that there's been some negativity, or maybe Brian mentioned that. So what's nice is when you go in person to a convention, you can see for yourself, are people happy? Are they healthy? Are they transacting? Are they just, pleased to be there? So I was happy to hear that.
When isn't there negativity in this hobby, though? Let's be real. I mean, there's always negativity. There's always people that are going to have, and it's not just, I'm not talking about negativity like I got scammed or there's no value in product. I mean, just complaining for the sake of complaining. There's really no shortage of that. But listen, in many cases, people have a legitimate gripe. And so it's important that we're talking about all these things. But it's also nice to, hear about the happy things going on and people buying great cards for their collections and all that, finding good deals on things. Yeah, it's good to see both sides of it, and that's what we're going to do here. So anyway, let's talk about this O-Pee-Chee case, Leighton, because it was originally auctioned on Heritage back in May or June, sells for $3.72 million, and the buyer never ends up paying for it, which is, just kind of bad news. And this is the buyer. Here's the buyer right here. This is the guy, Toronto area real estate agent Jack Arshosky was the buyer of the case. Here he's holding up his own copy of it. He never paid for it. This guy right here, in essence, is a shill bidder because he bid and didn't pay. He bid without the intention of paying. So bad on this guy. He's no friend to the hobby. And now the consignor has to hope and pray and that it's going to sell for $3.7 million again. My question for you, Leighton, is the fact that it wasn't paid for and it's up for auction again, does that hurt the item at all in this second time it's being offered publicly?
I do, because it's short term. However, I also think that the product is just as good as the first time around. So I think it might be an opportunity for a savvy investor or a collector, if they have that kind of money, if it sells for less, and a lot of people think that it will, to potentially buy it, sit on it, and maybe resurface it in 5 years, in 7 years, maybe in 10 years. And certainly I'm not offering investment advice, but you're asking me, do I think that it hurts it? And yeah, I don't think that activity such as that is really helpful in the auction process. Heritage and all the other auction companies want to see sales succeed, even if it's not at the level they want in terms of the sales price. They want to see it be a successful sale. So my guess is that they tried, very difficult, I'm sure, the situation, to sell it to the underbidder or contact a couple of them. And, my gut or my guess tells me that it's going to sell for, less than it did the first time.
I think so too. And if I'm the consigner, I'm pretty PO'd. I'm not mad at Heritage. I'm mad at Orshosky, who doesn't pay for it. It's like someone I just see down in the comments here, a little too many. Laura here says too much Red Bull while bidding. Apparently he said he was drinking Red Bulls and bidding. So, that's just irresponsible and it's frivolous. And now the consigner, because what was the underbid? Whatever, 3.6, and he's going to minus the commission for the auction house. The consigner, that family, all of a sudden their windfall, life-changing windfall, is going to be a little bit lower. I personally think that it's not going to sell. I hope I'm wrong. I hope that family makes a ton of money and this thing sells for huge. But I have a feeling it's going to sell for almost want to say significantly less than 3.72 million. Joe, what do you think? Like it got auctioned for 3.72, doesn't get paid. It's relisted now, 5-6 months later. And I was showing right here, no, wrong one, right here. It's currently at $1.1 million with the buyer's premium, or $925 without it right there. And there is still where it is 19 days left. So there's lots of time on this thing. Joe, what do you think? Does it taint it? Does it hurt it? Does it sell for as much as last time? What do you think?
I don't think it sells as much. The real question is, what did the third bidder bid that would be the kind of next place down that the second bidder, but they could have, their whole consideration of this might be soured after this. You don't know. So who are the big players? But this brings up a question for me. I mean, it's like somebody was mentioning just how many Gretzkys, because that would be the prize in such a case, might be in there. And if you start to kind of break down the odds of, fetching an 8, a 9, I mean, it's just not that many out there. So the odds are against that. But then you get into the sealed wax phenomenon. And I guess that's kind of where my brain always goes with these kinds of things. Like what are people's stomachs for sealed wax, especially with the scanning thing now? And I don't know if vintage is susceptible, say, like in the same ways that National Treasures or Flawless might be, but that's kind of where my brain goes, is like, is this something that is as appealing as it might have been, a couple of years ago?
Yeah, I think as far as the scanning goes, like, you're pretty much guaranteed, what is it, maybe 27 or something Gretzky rookies in that case, whatever that number is. Scanning, I don't think helps or hurts it, because it would only help it if someone was to scan it and find G.I. Joe cards inside there. That would be helpful to everybody to know that it is actually O-Pee-Chee, 1979 O-Pee-Chee hockey cards in there. But yeah, I mean, I think you're right when you mentioned that third bidder, because you have a bidding war between Arshawski, the shill bidder, and the second bidder. But if Orshowski's out of it, then the second bidder is only going to get bid up as high as the third bidder pushed that person. So you're very right, Joe, in kind of analyzing the auction that way. The third bidder is the one who really determines what that thing sells for. Leighton, does that all make sense to you?
Oh, very much so. Yeah, I mean, those are all excellent points, Joe. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens about 19 days from now.
Yeah, no doubt. It's it really is. Now, I have to ask you, Leighton, are you aware of the sexiest man in the hobby right now?
I was not, but I saw that as I was watching a few minutes ago, and I laughed out loud. I thought it was hysterical. It's great.
Glad you liked it. Big thanks to Cage for including me in one of his, and he does these annual votes. I make it in there sometimes, and I tend to lean into it. It's fun to lean into these things. Leighton, what else is going on with you, buddy? What else? You missed the Expo. Any shows coming up? Any big breaks on Vintage Breaks? What's going on?
So we have the Philly show coming up in December.
Right.
I did want to mention I caught some of what Brian was talking about, and I'm hoping that Leon's going to join us, Jeremy, on the Vintage Spotlight. But kind of talking in the same, I guess, vein, as far as maybe not as famous or infamous as Bill Mastro, but I really do believe in the idea of interviewing the former owner of Pinnacle, Leon Lucky, the owner of Net 54, who had never done an interview before. The recent one I did with him on trading card therapy. So I just think in general, like, we're talking about all this positive and negative, and you could judge Brian Gray and say whatever you want about him. But like, to me, the content's fascinating. And I'm actually not only grateful for now, but, my son's 9. And I know I talked about him, I'm sure a bunch of times in the past, but like when he's 18, which is 9 years from today, I like to be able to reference, hey, my old boss, Mike Hefner from Leland's. Hey, I did an interview with him 17 years ago at the Cleveland show. Let me show it to you. Oh my God, Dad, you look like I just think that getting it on video, especially for folks that are getting a little bit older and maybe have never done, any of these types of interviews, I just think it's really great hobby content. And it doesn't always have to necessarily be rah, the hobby's great, but I do think that some of these folks have stories to tell. And there's folks out there that want to listen to them. So I think, that's super interesting. And I was really grateful of Leon to spend some time with me. And I think he might spend some time with us, Jeremy. I think it would be great.
That's awesome. I did watch that. I did watch your interview with Leon on trading card therapy. It was great. And I'd love to bring him on our podcast, Vintage Spotlight. And hopefully we can talk about some other things, so we're not, repeating too much, because all have heard it already by watching you with him, but we'll find something else to talk about for sure. And, you mentioned like Brian Gray, he brings on Bill Mastro, and a lot of people might think, why are you giving him that? Why are you giving him that platform to address the hobby? I think it's a legitimate question to ask. And then I think, like, and Brian said, they talked about the Honus Wagner, the first one slabbed by PSA, or the 0001 card. But I said, like, you got to talk about the shill bidding. Like, that's what, if you're going to do that, you got to give the people what they deserve. The hobby deserves to watch him squirm a little bit and talk about the shill bidding that he ended up in jail for. Now, he paid his debt to society. He served his term, is my understanding. So, kudos for that. But now, that's a different jury. The hobby is its own jury. And I think that the hobby feels like it needs to grill this guy a little bit. And I'm sure that they will, and they have, because I know Brian did get some pushback on it, and he went on and talked about that. So, but Brian's not afraid to do that. And like you said, it is good content to listen and to even just watch this guy talk and get to know him as far as how he speaks, his body language, all of those sorts of things. So I'm with you on that. Yeah. Right on. All right. Well, I'm going to go to some comments, Leighton. You're welcome to stick around if you want. You can go as well. Totally up to you. Joe, I got Joe riding shotgun with me. He's my good buddy, kind of here to jump in. And, it's kind of nice to have a friendly face along for the ride. You know what I'm saying, Leighton? Well, you're one of those two.
Absolutely. Well, I can stick around for a few, most certainly. One of the things that Brian brought up, I think it was very quick, but this idea of backdoor from manufacturers. And so, I was a kid growing up in New Jersey, and I'd always heard about this Parsippany, the PAL Center, which was this Tuesday night card show. And I know for a fact that I never got my hands on any of it. And candidly, I wish I did when I was a kid. I might have been able to make some money, right? But there was definitely stuff coming out of Fleer. And, when like a Fleer product would drop, whatever it would be, hot gloves or whatever the case was, somehow you would hear like, oh my God, they had complete sets of that on Tuesday night at Parsippany. And it was almost like this mythical thing. And the thing is, my dad would never drive me. I lived in central New Jersey. This is north. So I had to wait until I was 17 years old to eventually go there. And by that point had changed a little bit, but still some of it existed. The point is to kind of get back to center what Brian was saying. Some of these stories, if people are willing to talk and give us their time, at the very least, even if the industry or the hobby goes away tomorrow, there's a lot of us who would still be interested in these stories.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, you always want to hear things like what got backdoored, and not only because it's interesting, but because you want to learn more about the product, because we're still going crazy about those singles from the 90s that are in question. And I'm always seeing people ask questions about, was this backdoored? Why doesn't this have a serial number? Like, there's stories, but you always see on eBay all these listings for cards without, missing the serial number. Well, what the hell is that for? What do you mean missing the serial number? How does that get packed out, right? It's a little crazy. Yeah. So we want to learn why that happened. I think that would help put some context around some of the things like that for sure. Cage says here, hobby positivity, but it's hard to compete with Seablez. Heck, I even voted for Seablez when it comes to the sexiest man in the hobby competition. I voted for everybody. I didn't vote for myself on Cage's thread, but I voted for everybody else. I think they're all pretty darn sexy. He goes on to say he went there every Tuesday night, the Parsippany show, always had Fleer and Flair stuff before the release date.
Oh man, Cage, I probably ran into you, back in the day.
We got Josh from 90s Auctions here, says, I love Leighton's stories. Well, yeah, who doesn't? Leighton's got good stories for sure. David G lives in North New Jersey. Crazy cards over here, especially baseball and Grotman cards. Now, this is Mitch Grotman, whose father was a distributor back in the 90s, one of the major distributors in the U.S. So he says Playoff, Fleer, and Pinnacle would send my dad complete print runs of every card for certain products in the 90s, not pack pulled. Playoff even printed 5 copies of each serial number for each set. So Mitch isn't talking out of his butt here. His dad was one of the major distributors in those years. So he's given us some good information right there as well, for sure. Now, Luigi says, now we're talking about the Gretzkys and the Gretzky case. Would the centering be considered? Oh, this is a great question. This is a really good question here, Leighton, and I'd like to get your thoughts on this one. What he's asking is, you've got this case of Gretzky cards, or this 1979 case of O-Pee-Chee. This one right here, it's up for auction right here on Heritage. Would the centering be consistent across all the cards in that set, in that unopened case? I would think it would be close, but I have no idea. Do you have any idea, Leighton? Have you ever opened a whole case of cards from the 70s or 80s and judged the quality of production?
Sure. Not from the 70s, but definitely from the 80s. And I would say that things jump around a lot. And, you know, one of the things that I like to try to get people to think about in their minds is that if you ever watched Laverne and Shirley, and I did when I was super young, and you think about them, like the beginning of that show, there's like them on the assembly line. You got to imagine that's who was putting together these cases of cards.
Laverne and Shirley.
Laverne and Shirley. And exactly. I don't remember all the other characters, but it was certainly an early part of my TV watching. I think my mom watched it with me or something. But regardless, I'm just trying to point out that they were not doing anything high tech. So for us to sit here and like hypothesize, it's really just that. We're totally just guessing. I mean, you know, it's fun. But the reality of it is these cards were placed in the hands of folks that didn't make a lot of money. The machinery wasn't high tech. And candidly, we're lucky that the wrappers still even stay intact today and keep the cards, you know, still enclosed in those packs and those boxes.
Yeah.
Leighton, what do you think about the psychology of? I know you and Jeremy probably more so than me. I've never collected wax. I can appreciate, you know, a 1976 Topps baseball wrapper because I remember having one in my hand as a, you know, 10-year-old. But what do you make of the psychology that leads someone to buy, especially this level of high-end unopened wax? In this case, it's a cardboard box. Or is it always kind of connected to the idea of what's inside it, and down the line at some point it will be opened? What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, there's a lot of different questions wrapped up in there, so I'll just try to be succinct. But, you know, certainly great questions. You know, number one, there are people, not just in sports, but I think Nia was making mention that he does stuff with Pokemon. And for the last few years, the only Pokemon he collects is literally that box with that tape, meaning the sealed cases of it. And so, you know, Joe, there's people that collect the unopened boxes and the packs. And I think in some cases, some people really are focusing on the art. Like, in other words, if you do a pack run, even just a wrapper run from 52 tops to 1979 tops, and you did that in a collage, it would look really visually very appealing. But if you did that with unopened cardboard cases, although it'd be worth infinitely more money, it may not visually be that appealing. So I think a lot of folks who are buying, you know, the boxes in particular, or even this case, are doing so for investment purposes. And certainly are not entertaining the thoughts of opening it. But I've certainly opened my share of packs through the years, vintage especially, over the last, I think, 5 or so with our company, vintagebreaks.com. And what I would say is it's super fun, but I kind of compare it to, you know, right, like, you know, I've never done much with rare wines. And they say, hey, it's really crazy to take a rare bottle of wine and open it and drink it. But yet there are some people who understand that it was made to be consumed, and that even though it's certainly off the charts in terms of price, that they're wine connoisseurs and they would like to consume the, you know, wine. So for me, I know that the whole notion of opening up vintage packs came from like, hey, I can never do this, Joe. I don't have the money. I don't have the financial wherewithal. And so many years ago, when I still had a chance to like participate at card shows and like, you know, pack poker and things of that nature, that was super fun. That was way before breaking took place. That was really the only way for like someone like myself to participate in like a vintage break. And so I just think that there's a lot of different angles to look at it. But I think the folks who particularly are keeping these, you know, boxes and cases closed that are worth a lot of money generally are looking at it from the investment standpoint.
Yeah, that all makes good sense to me. And, you know, to Joe's question, to me, this box right here, as it is the asset. And I know they've made sure that the packs are good, I guess, at BBCE. So that's great. You know, you're getting what you're expecting to get. But to me, this in this form, like sealed in that box, that's the value. As soon as you open that up, I think you lose money because those boxes individually aren't going to sell. The sum is more than the parts in this case, I would say. And if you were to open up all those packs and take out those, and really, there's no valuable cards in that year except for Gretzky. I mean, you've got the last playing days card of Gordie Howe and the last one of Bobby Hull, and after that, there's a humongous drop off to commons. There's not much left in there. You know, a couple of minor rookie cards and some other Hall of Famers, but nothing great. So if you were to open that up and get all the Gretzkys and grade them, I think you're going to be lucky to find an 8 in there. Maybe you do. Maybe you find all 8s. Who knows?
Well,
But
I want to mention you got a good chance at an 8, Jeremy. I've opened up only a couple packs through the years, but we did open up a pack a few years ago at Vintage Breaks, and we got a Gretzky, and it did grade an 8. And it was a very nice card. But I agree with all of your other sentiment that the value is in the case, as a unit. That's the asset. I would say, just because it's Saturday night, right, throw out some fun stuff. I have an idea other than getting, 9s and 10s in terms of, how would you turn this into some sort of profitable venture? Let me tell you, if you got Wayne Gretzky and you got, well, maybe not Netflix after last night and Jake Paul, Mike Tyson fight and all the problems with the streaming and such, but if you had some sort of event and you could, months ahead of time, sell tickets, have an undercard, right? I've long talked about this in breaking. I think Glez did this. They said they called it the break of the decade. This would truly be the break of a lifetime, opening up a 1979 O-Pee-Chee hockey case with Wayne Gretzky, on some sort of like center stage. Might take a while, but get some breakers that are fast. That seems to me like you could turn a profit doing that, Jeremy.
Yeah.
Sell tickets,
Yeah, the total sellout is pretty high there. Like we're in the, you're going to be close. You're going to be over $4 million there. I just did the math because there's 10,752 cards in that box, 396 cards in the set. That's 27.15 Gretzky rookies in there, and a PSA 8 right now is worth, call it $15,000 US. That adds up to $407,000.
Yeah,
that's almost. What is that? That's like 15% of what it sold for last time. There's no way that you can open that and make money at $3.7 million, Leighton, even to what you just said. I'd want
to sell $10 million of tickets to the events.
Sorry. Yeah. You could, if you were selling spots, but let me rephrase, if you open those boxes and you grade all the Gretzkys and they all come back 8s, which I think is the best case scenario. Maybe you get 1/9, so that'll add about $100,000 to the tally. So now you're at 507, and you still have to spend $3 million to buy it. You cannot make money off that case if you open them one pack at a time. Now, if you open them, you sell the boxes. There's 16 boxes in there. You sell those each for a couple $100,000. Now you got $3.2 million. You're still not at what you paid for it for the whole case. That's why I said at the beginning of this, I think that the value is in the unopened case. That is the historical artifact. The historical hobby artifact is that unopened case. That's what I think the value is in.
Totally. So what it all brings up to me, I mean, there's been a lot of conversation about the end user in the hobby lately, right? Like, who is the end user? And to me, that's why I scratch my head at this valuation. If it's anywhere near what it sold for last time, it's not exactly a flex to show a cardboard box. And I agree with you, Leighton. It aesthetically, even the colorful packs from the 70s are going to present better and be kind of more cool than a cardboard box. So that's kind of where I'm a little flummoxed on all of this, because I anticipated that it would be a gross devaluation to start ripping them open. But in theory, even an asset, there needs to be somebody who wants to own that asset that's not merely an investor, right? I mean, wouldn't you think? And who is that person? That's the psychology part that I'm a little befuddled by.
Yeah. Who's the buyer? I mean, some rich dude in Toronto that is in the real estate industry that can't pay for it at the end of the day anyway. It'll be interesting to see who buys it this time. And if they pay for it, which I'm sure, I have to think that Heritage will be going to extra lengths this time, if for no other reason, for the consignor, to make sure that the consignor is taken care of this time. So yeah, it's interesting for sure. A couple comments did come in here. Bobby Burrell said here that those 1979 boxes are the only Gretzky boxes with a super guarantee to be completely original in the hobby. And Bobby knows his hockey card history. So if he's saying that this is and I know that I've heard people say that this is, they're almost certain it's the only one that survived. And if that's, I don't know that I can buy into that for sure. So there could be another one just like this family that doesn't know they have it, but if it is the case, then it's really an amazing thing. Bobby goes on to say the boxes are taped, sealed within the case, so no packs were seen. So that's good. But the case was opened, and BBCE did look at the boxes, I guess. Did they not open one of them to see the packs inside? I don't know. If not, maybe these things were CT scanned to make sure that they were in fact hockey card packs inside those boxes. But unless they know exactly what to look for, I'm not sure about that. And Bobby says if the average box goes for $200,000, these should be worth more. Yeah, well, the market will tell. The market will tell if they're ever opened up and put out for sale again. So we'll have to see. I just looked on Instagram, and Ian Medeiros on there. He says that also consider Gretzky's graded cards are going up again in PSA 8s because PSA is not grading sheet cut anymore. But PSA hasn't been grading sheet cut in what, like, as far as I know, like 30 plus years. So I don't know, to Ian, and just anyone watching, I see we have people on Instagram. Feel free to come on over to YouTube for the better viewing experience. We have 145 people watching between YouTube and Twitter right now. So come on over to YouTube where you can get in, and to the people on Twitter, come on over to YouTube as well. You can get in on the chat over there. Over here. All right. Lots of comments, guys. I'm going to scroll way back up here and try to knock some of these out. We're going to go back to the Mike Tyson fight for a moment here. The professor said Mike Tyson cracked a good joke when the announcer asked why he was biting his gloves, which was kind of hard to watch. Like, he was literally in a fight, like, right, and he's biting on his glove while he's blocking punches. Like, Mike, what's going? Is that a skill? Should all fighters be doing that? Anyway, he said Tyson says he likes to bite things in reference to the infamous ear bite many years ago. Yes, that was pretty funny. Good evening to the card hunter. Yitz is getting a little scared. Yeah. So we'll go into this one right now. What I'm talking about with Yitz here. So I've been doing my weekly video I do where I go through the eBay items on my watch list that have ended. And, I kind of just talk about what they sold for. What do I think of it? Why was I watching them? Was I a bidder? Do we suspect shill bidding? What's going on? And then you start to come across all these eBay listings where the buy it now price is like, what the word I'm using for it is stupid, just a stupid eBay buy it now price. And on last week's show, 2 weeks ago on this show, we went through like 20 of them. And so I'm going through eBay and I see, this is hilarious. I see this card on eBay. And this is a really great card. This card sold on the Fanatics Collect platform about a year ago. And I don't remember what it sold for, but it sold on there. And now it's offered on eBay for $25,000 or best offer. But I do know it's also on my card post for $15,000. It's available there as well. But if you look at this, I don't know if you've seen it yet, but you see there's a picture of the front of the card, there's a picture of the back of the card, and then they put this image in the listing. Well, that's me right there with my stupid. So I'm like, so at first I was like, wait a second. And I had to figure out, wait, I think I know whose card this is. I got to confirm. And I think it's Yitz's card. So I'm like, why would they put this in the listing? Like, what's the strategy here? You're not going to tell people it's a stupid buy it now price, but maybe you're trying to get on the stupid buy it now episode of Sports Cards Live, or you're just trying to bring attention to the card and you're willing to work a deal and take an offer that is much less than $25,000. I don't know, but I saw this and I thought that's just hilarious that this image, because that's me there, guys. You can tell, made it into the listing. What do you make of that, Leighton?
I think it's hysterical.
Me too.
I mean, it's funny because I would have definitely known that was you. I just kind of know, like, I happen to think that was an interesting episode.
You liked it?
Yeah. I mean, listen, it's all in good fun. I don't take it too seriously, even if someone wants to ask too much for a card. But I think the hobby needs a little bit more of that these days. And that's what I wanted to close with, because I got to run, take care of my son. But our hobby, right? It gets a little microcosm of what the rest of life is. So if you wake up in the morning, every morning, and you decide that wherever you go get your coffee or your bagel, wherever you go for lunch or wherever you get your gas, if you want to be in a bad mood and you want to find something wrong, let me tell you something, you will. But you will probably live a shorter life. And so this is not to say like you should ignore Peachy hockey case being resold and that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying to be careful. Like if you're in the hobby to enjoy it, then be careful with your choices. If you are doing this professionally, I think it's important to stay educated, even if sometimes it's not always, roses. But a lot of people are kind of doing both, right? Let's just be clear. We're buying, we're selling, we're flipping, we're using the money to fund our collection. Shout out to Fund Your Cards, very cool service. I just think we should be careful. And so, after spending a wonderful day with my son that had nothing to do with collecting, we did clean up his one-piece cards earlier today, and this was super cool. I'll leave you with this. This was awesome, Jeremy. I know your kids are a little bit younger than mine, but we just submitted his first ever cards to get graded by PSA. Now, they're not sports cards. They're one-piece, but I showed him how it all worked, and he was so excited up until the moment when he goes, oh, so when are they going to be back? I'm like, oh, this is January something. He goes, January, whatever. I'm like, Cross, that's great. Like, it's already in the system. He has no concept of like bulk and, wait times or anything like that. So guys, have some fun with our hobby. Enjoy the rest of your night. Thanks for, letting me hop on tonight, Jeremy, and great to connect with you, Joe.
Great.
Well said, Leighton. And before you go, I would just say to Crosby, it's a great, who is your son, it's a great opportunity to learn patience. If you're grading in this industry, you will and you should learn patience. And I think it's great. And it's a great lesson to be learned. So thanks for jumping on, Leighton.
Take it easy, guys.
See you later, man. So Yit says, you gave the idea. So I guess I gave him the idea to put this up there. eBay, yes, eBay for sure. Mitch says that that card was on here. I'll put the card back on instead of my chin. Was on eBay for 6,000 OBO USD for months. And Nitz goes on to say he got the Patrick Wall with Fund Your Cards. He used the Fund Your Card service at a little over $3,000 with fees, and he's shouting out Fund Your Cards. And now he's putting it up for what I would consider to be a stupid buy it now price. But listen, I actually think if you only paid $3,000 for this on Fanatics Collect back in the day, back in the day a year ago, I think that's too cheap. I don't think it's a $25,000 card. I don't even know if it's a $15,000 card. Mitch says it was selling for $6,000. It was on $6,000 for months. No one bought it. And it might be that the autograph is not perfect anymore. That might have something to do with it. The patch is from an All-Star jersey, which is still cool by me. It's not from a Montreal Canadiens jersey, but I don't know what this card is worth for sure. And it's hard to say. It's actually hard to say. Oh, wait a second. Mitch says it wasn't Fanatics. It was Denny Angers' card. Oh, this was not offered on Fanatics that night, Mitch. When I was buying all the non-autoed ones, I thought it was on there. My bad. In any event, if it wasn't on there, anyway, back to what it's worth. I don't know, but I can't see it being worth anything less than about $5,000. Somewhere between 5 and 10 would be my guess, but don't know for sure. Don't know for sure until it goes out on auction. Then I think you get a really good idea of what it's worth. So we'll see. Anyway, yeah, it's no reason to be scared, but it was pretty funny to see that image in the listing. That's so funny. So funny.
I appreciated the point you made in that episode about, sometimes it's even just the one removed advertising, hopefully no one on eBay is watching, but people reaching out to go off of the platform, either through IG or some other way of doing that. And sometimes just having the card out there people will do that. And then there's an avenue to, less fees, etc.
I think eBay is well aware that people use their platform to advertise a card, and then they're well aware that some people will reach out to those people on Instagram or wherever and try and do the business out. I don't think eBay likes that, but I think it's just a part of their business now at this point that it's hard for them to completely stop that. So, but I know they definitely don't like it, but it's something that happens. Some eBay accounts have their it'll say like, whatever, Jeremy Lee IG. And then like, you're basically telling people in your eBay handle to come knock on my door on IG to do a deal there. So, okay, let's move on here. Laura asks, how did I prepare for my stage interviews with each individual professional? Because again, at the Toronto Expo last weekend, I interviewed Chris Pronger, Chris Chelios, and Max Domi. And I did the research the way you would expect, Laura. I went on Wikipedia. I went to their stats. I looked, and then I talked to people who I felt might have some good insights. And I got great questions from people, had my sheets, and off to work I went. It was a ton of fun, and they were all awesome. They were all super cool. Chris Pronger was awesome. He was just chilled out. And he's like the only guy out there that I could look at. Like, he's my height. We were eye to eye. It was kind of awkward to look at someone eye to eye. I'm just not used to that because I'm like basically 6'6". Chris Chelios, what a chill dude he was. He was awesome as well. Max Domi was super cool. Happy to be there. It was just great. Hobby Champ said, Jack Astor's owes me a sponsorship. I'm just glad they took care of us. They doubled the staff this time. It was awesome. People were happy getting their food, getting their drinks.
That was a fun reel to watch. I particularly remember when Alex Passion walked in, you gave him a big hug, and Alex is my guy. Shout out, Alex. So it was fun to at least, I didn't cross the border, but I got to be there for the Jack Astor's moment in, I guess it was your reels, right?
Yeah, no, exactly. It was, I did 3 live. I was so busy at the Expo that I didn't do the content that I wanted, that I could have done more content. Like going around interviewing people, just getting more, sights and scenes at the Expo. I wasn't able to do that. But what I did do was at the networking event on Thursday, at Rip Party on Friday, and at Trade Night on Saturday, I did like lives where I walked around with my phone. I just live streamed, talked to people. All 3 probably went about 10 minutes. And they're on my IG if anyone wants to go see what it was like to be like at these events at the Expo. Perchy says the Rip Party was great. Yeah, the Rip Party, the Gong Show guys just do a bang up job. They basically had a production studio in their Airbnb. They brought in a bubble hockey machine. They had ripping stations. They had a spotlight area. It was awesome. It was just great. Yeah, Josh, great. Josh from 90s Auctions came up from Chicago to the Expo, hung out at my booth. It was great to see you there for sure. Yitz wants to know when's the next East Coast Expo. The next Toronto Expo will be in April. I believe it's like the 25th to the 27th are the dates, but this Sport Card Expo website should have it. Mark Santucci. Mark, I only picked up hockey cards at this Expo. I picked up a Babe Ruth, a 1948 exhibits Babe Ruth. That was the oddball, but otherwise, those are my pickups. Not a lot, all hockey. The Card Hunter says, always a great show. Cheers, Captain Jean-Luc Picard of the hobby. Yeah, I saw that comment on this post right here. Again, I'm pulling it up because I just think I did a bang up job on the Photoshop here, getting my head on top of John Krasinski there. And of course, the logo. Yeah, great pick right there of me, if I might say so myself. Chris C, Dr. Beckett, a treasure trove of info. And Dr. Beckett puts out a 15-minute podcast every day. So his information is very readily available. And we should all be grateful and thankful that he is still out there creating content for all of us. Hobby Champs, in relation to the interview that Brian Gray did with Bill Master, he says they should have explained the prison sentence in great detail and been apologetic and been apologetic right away, then everyone would have backed off. I disagree, Hobby Champ. Listen, should have is very like there's no should have. They can do whatever they want to do. I hate using the word should. I'm not going to tell anyone what you should do. maybe this is how I would have done it, but I don't like the terminology should have, but I understand where you're coming from. And I think that they'll do it next time. And that's fine. What they should do is how they want to do it and what's comfortable for them at the time. And I think they'll get there, though. Like Brian said, he intends to for sure. Chris C says the reason people are anti-Fanatics is because not just the fact that they're a monopoly, but the fact they lack innovation. We had innovation in the 90s with competition. Unfortunately, something. I mean, how can we say that they lack innovation? I mean, maybe not innovating everywhere, but the MLB debut patch, that's innovative. Listen, I'm not a fan of Mercury, but that's innovative. I don't know. I think it's so easy to say someone isn't innovative. A company isn't innovative. I hear it all the time about Upper Deck. Upper Deck's extremely innovative. Now, would these companies be more innovative with competition? Probably, but I don't think we can say they're not innovative. I think we're seeing innovation all over the place right now, but that's just me. And that's the way I do see things. Motorcycle Mark says, will this be bigger than the Segway? Looking forward to hearing what this is in January. He's talking about what Brian Gray is moving on to doing. Hobby Champ says, if you're starting a new card manufacturer, Brian isn't here anymore, so we won't even read that one. And I'm sorry that I couldn't get to all these comments when he was here, or Leighton as well, but that's just the way it goes when you're bringing on guests and bringing on comments. But we'll get to them, guys. We'll get to them. I'll do my best. I promise you, I will do my best. Chris C says, someone who owns an auction house should be in prison. Some would say, if you know the 80s hobby history, you know who I mean. Yeah, well, you want to throw words out there, Chris C. Please go ahead and do it. I'm not going to guess who you're talking about myself. Cage says, are you joining? Let's all guess what Brian is doing next. He said, we should know by December, we should have an idea of when. 90s auction says, was there a forfeiture or restitution? Okay, so we're too late on some of these here, guys. But Latrell Sprewell says, can you explain the Beckett fraud scandal you're referring to? So it's not a Beckett fraud scandal per se. The issue is with the owner of Beckett, which is Charles Lindbergh. And it says right here, let's see, billionaire Greg Lindbergh pleads guilty to a $2 billion insurance fraud scheme. So listen, I don't want to read this whole article right now to Latrell Sprewell, The American Dream, but you can go search Greg Lindbergh insurance fraud scandal, and you'll get this logo. You'll come to this article right here. This is on MSN.com, but he's the founder of Global Growth, which is the investment firm that owns Beckett Grading as one of their many holdings. And the owner, and apparently he's been in jail for a while. This is just a new charge that he now got, or a new conviction, I guess, because he pled guilty to it. So we'll see what happens. But a federal grand jury indicted the 54-year-old man in February of 2023. And I think he's been in jail ever since. The scheme occurred around 2016 through 2019. $2 billion. It was, the victims were policyholders, companies. This was a legit $2 billion scam that this guy pulled. Already convicted of bribing a state official, so he's into bribery as well. What happens to him now? There's no talk in this about Beckett. This is about him himself, but we the hobby just know that this is the guy that owns Beckett. And by the way, it's important to note here that, Dr. James Beckett sold the company almost 20 years ago. So he has nothing to do with this. He's been out of that business for a very long time, but unfortunately his name is still attached to the company. So, but Hobby Champs lets us know that Simon Cart, which is Simon466 on YouTube. Simon has a great channel, guys. He doesn't have enough followers or subscribers on there. I will go find his channel and show it to you guys, because I want to shout out Simon. He does a lot of great videos, and you guys should check it out. It's Simon466 Cards, I believe, is the name of the channel. Yes, it is. So here it is right here, you guys. Simon466 Cards. So here he did What Will Happen, Ken Golden Confronts Card Ladder, Junk Era. These are popular. Just go to videos. So I think go search Simon466 and you'll find there what Hobby Champs is talking about. What's up, baseball card curmudgeon from an hour ago? Good stuff. The Card Hunter says, if you could buy Beckett, would you, or is it too late? I don't think it's too late. I really don't, because the brand, I mean, the hobby roots for the brand. I feel like the hobby wants that brand to succeed. If I could buy Beckett, would I? Yeah, I think I probably would. Yeah, that would be fun. But I don't know. Obviously, you need to do due diligence. You need to run your projections. Listen, it's a business. At the end of the day, you're buying a business. It's to make money, not just to make the hobby happy. You want to make the hobby happy and make money. And if there was a way to do that, kind of who wouldn't, right? But I guess we'll see what happens in due course here. Mitch says it's hard to compare how hot hockey is when it arguably crashed the least of all the major sports after the COVID boom. Yeah, I think that's a fair comment that Mitch makes, that it did crash the least. And I attribute that to a couple things, but I think that and I've said this before, I think that hockey and baseball have the strongest foundations of collectors, that end user, because they love their cards. Whereas basketball and football, we just see so much more flipping, so many more transient buyers and people that are buying cards to flip. Hockey card, I mean, the cards I bought and the cards I sold at the Expo, I mean, you got to see these buyers. I'd say 90% of them are going to permanent collections. The cards that I bought, I mean, this little stack here that I bought, like there's only 3 that I consider to be temporary PC. The rest are kind of in my long-term PC. So I think Mitch makes a good point. And I think that's one of the biggest reasons, is because hockey collectors, along with baseball collectors for the most part, especially like the vintage guys, like they want to hold those things for a long time. That's at least my perspective, my perception on it. Chris C says, fact is, most kids prefer Pokemon over sports cards. Yeah, but the thing about this, the way you have this written, Chris, in my opinion, it's like it's almost, and a lot of people do this. You're like, well, it's almost like they're not mutually exclusive. To me, they're two mutually exclusive things, even though I know they're not completely. Like the fact that kids collect Pokemon, I don't think impacts sports cards. You collect Pokemon because that's what you collect. The times have changed. I mean, Pokemon is now a thing. It wasn't a thing in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. When I was growing up in the 80s, we didn't have Pokemon. But you could collect you could collect Pogs, you could collect other things if you wanted to. Now they collect Pokemon. I don't know that hurts the hobby from this point forward. Maybe it does. Maybe I'm not thinking it through properly, but I see them as two kind of different things, even though they coexist under the same roofs at card shows. It's like there was tons of kids collecting sports cards as well, but just because there are kids collecting Pokemon, I don't think that precludes other kids from collecting sports cards. I think that's what I'm trying to say there. Curmudgeon says, people buying at 85% of comps is not liquidation value. When you buy non-core liquid cards, you will arrive at a more suitable hobby liquidation value. God, some big words in there, Curmudgeon. I don't even think I have the time to try and understand that comment all that well. I'm sure I'll look back and say, oh, that's what he was saying. But when you buy non-core liquid cards, you will arrive at more suitable liquidation. Thanks for the comment, baseball card Curmudgeon. We're going to move on. Card Hunter says, I am very positive on the hobby. I have a hobby. I'm hard for the hobby, he says. Don't get soft on the hobby. Grab your hobby blue pills and buckle up. Those damn mega bids, says Cage, when it comes to that, the winner of the Opeachy case back earlier this year that didn't pay. Daniel A., what's going on? Welcome to the show. Good to see you at Expo. Mark Santucci says, don't owners hold on to the cards until they receive the money? If so, what happened? Yeah, Mark, I think you just misunderstand. It was an auction that didn't get paid for. Hobby Champs, when did Sam Reinhart become Joe Sakic? Yeah, I mean, I'm a big Sam Reinhart fan now, especially after, meeting him in person, partying with him at a wedding. What a good dude he is. So Motorcycle Mark says, the third highest bidder is the support price that chases the second highest bidder up. Only hope of higher is if this publicity. Yeah, it's exactly right. That's what we were talking about. I know this comment came in a long time ago, but you're exactly right there.
And he mentions the publicity. I mean, that's an interesting point too. Like, does this actually, I mean, I think we're assuming it might elevator shaft a little bit, but there may also be some upticks with regards to just now this has a little notoriety behind it.
Yeah, I think that could be a really good point right there, that maybe, this is a second chance to get all the original people who are aware of it, and now even more people who are aware of it, market it some more, talk about ways to make money off it if that's what you want to do, talk about the importance of it as a true hobby relic, a historical relic.
I didn't know what Bobby was mentioning. I didn't know all that. I mean, if it's, true, which I have no reason to think it's not.
Yeah, I mean, if Bobby is right, and these are the only boxes with a super guarantee, like if that is the only case, it truly is a grail item. Like you can't really put a price on it, but as soon as you open it, I think it's like driving the car off the lot, the new car off the lot. I think you open that box up, you lose the ability to make a return on that investment, I think so.
Well, Jeremy, I know you have an unopened pack collection. Does the idea of a cardboard case appeal to you in the same way that, say, a single pack of 61 Fleer basketball sort of is a cool thing to hold in hand?
No.
Yeah.
I don't. Yeah. A big brown box does not interest me at all, unless I'm really, really rich and I just want to own it as an asset, for an heirloom.
Right.
Sure. But not at the cost of my cards and I just want to have one pack of all the years, because I think the packs, I love the artwork. I think the packs are cool. I don't care what's in them. Like, it's not about what's in them. It's about the pack in that original form.
And it's curious. I mean, I love Heritage, Jeremy and what they do, but it was interesting just even how they presented that case, on the ice. They kind of like dressed it up a little bit, the image of it in the auction.
Yeah. For sure. It's an amazing item, and I think we'll see what happens. Let's get back to the Patrick Waugh card here that we were talking about, because I just see a comment from Yitz where he says, I did get a few offers that I declined, but kind of keeping it for now. Sometimes it's good to just keep cards. Yeah, right on. Sometimes it's just good to keep cards, and the problem with this card now, not the problem with it, but where the risk that Yitz takes by having this out there is that cards can lose their luster if they're just offered to. Look at the Brady championship ticket. Look at the Jordan 86 Fleer. I mean, you see these cards over and over and over again, even a rare card, even a 101. If it is offered for sale too often, people lose interest in it. It's almost a better idea long-term. Take it off the market, hide it for a year, 2 years, and then offer it again. I think that might be a better strategy if you are looking to maximize value, but just leaving it on eBay for this long, I mean, unless there's another pandemic and people, have all this extra money that they want to spend, I don't know that you're doing it any favor by just leaving it up there for 25 grand, but maybe someone comes along and pulls the trigger. You just never know. You really don't. Grotman says, I gotta think eBay will catch on to the IG usernames eventually. Yeah, there's one guy that comes up in a lot of my weekly videos because he's got great cards that I'm interested in, and I forget his name, but it's his name on IG. Dan Milburn from Winnipeg. What's going on, Dan? Go Bombers! Welcome to the show, Dan. Big Daddy Cool says, I personally know the original bidder on that Gretzky card. I assess his net worth at about $350. I don't know what are you talking about, the case, Big Daddy Cool? And are you talking about 350 million? Need more information on that. Oh, Gretzky case. Sorry. What's his net worth? Is his net worth literally $350 or is it 350 million? And if it is, why wouldn't he pay for it and be a reputable person, an honest person, and pay for it if he's worth 350 million? Why wouldn't you just pay the 3.7 and be done with it? Interesting. But thanks for popping up, Big Daddy Cool. Let us know if you have any more information on that. Hobby Champ says, I say should have in relation to if they wanted blowback. If they're cool with the blowback, then sure, whitewash the prison sentence. Certainly not how I would go about it. Teach their own. Yeah, teach their own for sure. And I appreciate you following up, Hobby Champs. And yeah, I mean, Brian Gray, BG, if you're listening to this later on after you're done watching Tom Lasso, whatever. Tom Lasso?
I think so.
But anyway, the Lasso show. Did you want the blowback? Brian Gray, he's BG. He doesn't mind these heated discussions. Maybe he was willing to do it, or maybe they just had a discussion, said, let's do this one first and that one after. Either way, hopefully they get to all of it one way or another. Peep says, who cares about bribery and scandals when there's sunshine and palm trees? Joe Perot's background full of sunshine and palm trees. Gotta love it. Gotta love it. Dan Milburn, he says he would buy Beckett, hands down, an easy business to rebuild. I agree with Dan. I think he's bang on. That Beckett brand, I think, still has value. And listen, Beckett was just set up at the Expo. I talked to the guys from there at the keg one night after. I said, how's the show? Listen, I'm not the biggest fan of what's going on there with the brand, but there's still good people. There's still some good people there. And we'll see what happens. But I agree with Dan. I think that you get the right kind of leader in that company. I don't know who the leader is there. I think his name is Kevin Isaacson, but I don't know Kevin Isaacson. I don't have any experience, so I can't assess his leadership, managerial, CEO skills. But I think a lot of people could kind of say right now he's not doing a great job. What do you think, Joe?
I think if the owner is in prison and has been in prison for quite some time, that presents some challenges for the organization. And so, in terms of legitimacy of rulership, if you will, to get a little political, I don't know who has it. If you have to kind of check in a person that's incarcerated and is continuing to be indicted.
Yeah.
My care. I mean, I think we're all. I don't know. Maybe we're not. But I root for Beckett. I've got a lot of old BVG and BGS slabs, and a couple new ones too. I like them for certain, use cases, if you will. But I do wonder if Beckett were to go away, would people summarily crack their slabs and resubmit to another grading company, or would they hold on to the Beckett slab because it would represent a part of the hobby, that we all experienced, and despite the fact that they went down, they want to kind of hold on to that for posterity.
I think people would break them out eventually, because I mean, if the current situation persists years into the future, because 90% of the hobby is under the PSA spell, for better or for worse. And, and like 90% of the hobby, they just look at the grade and buy the card. They don't even look at the card. I think the right approach is to look at the card and then look at the grade. First of all, look at the card and say, do I like the card? Do I like the eye appeal? Do I like the way this card presents? And then look at the grade and say, okay, based on how much I like the card, and then what the grade comes in at, am I going to overpay for this card based on how much I like it? Am I going to underpay? Like, is the card overgraded? In my opinion, you don't have to be a professional grader to have this, to do this. You just have to know, if you have to have a bit of experience with sports cards and know, do I like this card the way it looks? I'm going to come back to my favorite card, PSA 1. People have said to me, and I had it at Expo, people are like, why don't you resubmit? I'm like, I want it in a 1. I don't want this to be a 2. What's a 2 going to do for me? I'm not selling the thing. I think it's super cool and a great case study. It's a really good example. Buy the card, not the grade. And so to me, I got this card at a steal because it's way nicer than the grade shows. But you can look at a card, and I see it all the time. People that, especially the people who are slaves to the set registry, not slaves, but just addicted to it and competing on there. They're buying the slab. They're paying in many cases, like, I don't know, pick a percentage, anywhere from 25 to 90% of their price is for the plastic and the slab and the label, not the card. I have a lot more admiration for people who find a really nice card at a lower price, like a really strong 3 that looks beautiful, that should sell for what a 5 sells for. So, I mean, we could talk about this. I love this topic because I think there's such an opportunity to buy low grade cards that are superior for the grade at prices that are at the low grade prices, because even a lot of sellers don't understand this. Hopefully people start to, but once the secret's out of the bag, then we're going to be paying more for lower cards and lower grades, and you won't be able to get those great deals like I did on that card anymore. So
But I don't think you go as far as what Brian was mentioning. I do, because I have a few of these slabbed altered cards. But Brian was mentioning, the altered, I think he mentioned 52 mantle or something, a 3, a beater 3, or something that's been altered that looks like, a near mint card. And I, at least from what I know of your collection, Jay Lee, you're not down with anything altered in a slab. You'd prefer to find those, eye appeal, strong for the grade examples, not so much.
Yes, but I would happily add a card that was altered and knowing like that is slabbed altered by PSA in
Right.
my or SGC into my collection.
Right.
But it would only be only a few cards, like 52 Topps Mickey Mantle. That has that was altered a little bit. Maybe it was whatever the alteration was, recolored, trimmed, paper added back, whatever it is. But looked like an 8. I'd happily add one of those to my collection because it looks so good. And I can't even afford a PSA 1 in a 52 Topps Mantle. So why not? What are you showing us here?
This is I just happen to have it handy. This is a 68 Mantle altered, and shout out Slab Strong Tim, in a nice little blue Slab Strong. But it's it presents to me like an 8, but it's altered. It's designated as altered. There's no funny business going on. I believe it's trimmed, short on the borders. But anyway, I have it up in my house just because it's fun to look at, a card that was such fresh card stock and, presenting like a card that would probably be in the, 7 to 10K range, as opposed to, I don't know, as an altered example, it's probably worth $250.
Yeah. I mean, a card like a Tito 6 Ty Cobb, a 52 Topps Mickey Mantle. Those are the kind of cards that I would add in a PSA altered holder, because first of all, I want to know they're authentic. And I want to like some alterations. It's like, well, that's how I'm going to get a beautiful copy of the card. So I don't have any, but I don't have any.
I didn't think you did. But I mean, and your story is so beautiful though, with, going into your local card store and finding this PSA 1. I mean, that's an extra level of, what Leighton always talks about, kind of the treasure hunt, ethos story. And I like that. And I know you're very supportive of that card shop. And if you aren't, you should be.
For sure I am. Yeah. Eastridge Hobbies here in Calgary. Mike and Vicky, great store. All great store. Okay. Mark Santucci, what does Joe think football cards are in third place around the USA and Canada, or a different place position? I think he wants to know, like, to me, basketball baseball still is number 1, followed by basketball, and then probably football, and then hockey. Even though I think hockey has a stronger foundation of true collectors than basketball or football does. I don't know that its market is as big as football. It probably isn't. But I think he's just asking, do you agree that football is kind of third place if you're measuring the markets for those 4 major sports?
I've got no data, Mark, but my sense is that, at least in terms of popularity, football is the most popular sport right now. It has different, situations in terms of it being once a week. In the card world, the tricky thing with football is that we all obsess on quarterbacks, and to the exclusion of almost any other position. I mean, with the exception of a few skill positions that, don't always have very extensive careers, running back, wide receiver. It's a dangerous game. But I think we might look back now, in 5 or 10 years, and see this actually as a pretty important market, the football market. That'd be my crystal ball assessment.
Mid-Atlantic says the key thing to know about the Lindbergh story is that instead of putting money into Beckett to turn it around, he's been pulling money out of Beckett to pay unrelated debts. And maybe that's why their brand, they haven't been able to support the brand very well publicly. Maybe they don't have money to market it. Maybe they don't have money to do what needs to be done to get that brand, whatever it would take. That's good. That's a really good point from Mid-Atlantic right there. Dogwood Collectibles New York says, opinion on the current state of grading in hockey. I used to send everything to PSA, and now I'm leading towards pro mold and calling it a day. So just like a one touch, just like a holder. It seems like if it's not a PSA 10, you're better off raw. I mean, I guess Dogwood, by that last part of the comment, you're talking about like ultra modern for the most part, because otherwise I don't think you're better off raw when it comes to, older cards. So I don't know. I don't think there's much of a difference in terms of the state of grading in hockey versus anything else. I don't think there is, but maybe there is. I think for the most liquid, you want to grade with PSA. That's how you get the most liquidity out of your cards. And if it's, but I mean, I think there is so much value because, and Dogwood, he's onto it, right? He says, if it's not PSA 10, it's like, if it isn't PSA 10, it isn't worthwhile. It's kind of where a lot of the people in the hobby stand. But I think a lot of the people that have that, that take that position, are a lot of the younger, newer people in the hobby that are under that PSA spell. That PSA spell is very, very strong, and it has a lot of people completely under it. And for that reason, I think there's great value in PSA 9s and BGS 9s and BGS 9.5s, because again, I'm a card collector. I'm not collecting plastic. Yes, I have a ton of slabs, but it's about the card that's inside of the slab. Yes, I love getting a great grade. I don't do a lot of grading myself anymore, but yes, I love having a good grade on a card. As long as I agree with the grade, I am not paying PSA 10 prices for cards that don't deserve to be PSA 10s. And we all know there's many cards in PSA 10 holders that used to be in PSA 9 holders, and vice versa. So that's why I think there's so much value in PSA 9s. I think the real savvy collectors are saving themselves that 90% delta between a 9 and a 10, or whatever that delta is. 90 might be a little bit high, or maybe a lot high, 50%, whatever it is, and buying the 9s. Because at the end of the day, the difference between an ultra modern, even a modern PSA 9 and a PSA 10, those differences, can't even really see them in many cases. So buy a 9 and be happy. But if you want to flex your 10s, then you got to have 10s. And there's a lot of social media sharing of cards nowadays, and the 10 probably makes people feel better themselves than a 9. But for me, I feel good about a lower grade card now. That's my flex. Like, this to me is the ultimate flex, a PSA 1 that looks like a 7. That is the ultimate flex. You take your PSA 8 of this card and your flex, and I'm like, trust me, I love this more than you love your PSA 8 of this same card that you spend $500,000 on. I guarantee you I love that more than you love yours. Dogwood says, do you think the Patrick Waugh in a 7, talking about this card here, would be better off being sold raw? I don't think so, Dogwood, because it's a one of one. I love PSA's thick slab for thick cards. I think it's a great looking slab. So, it presents the card well, and I don't think it's going to make a difference myself. But listen, I'm only one collector out there. I don't know.
Is there a threshold for you though? If it was a 6, if it was a 5?
I would have to look at the card. Like, okay, so if we're talking about the eye appeal of the card being considered, like if these corners if there's like ding corners on this card and surface loss in the corners and scratches or scrapes along the edges and maybe a big line through the card somewhere, like an indent, then I might just not want it at all, but in that case, I think a grade helps it, because I want to know what I'm buying at the same time. So
authentic. I mean, you can always have them just authenticate it and have that kind of ambiguity of what it would have graded.
You could. The fact of the matter is, a card like this, we know it's authentic. You just know it is, right?
Yeah.
And at that point, I would just do what the former commenter said. I would just put it in a pro mold or a one touch or whatever, right? I would be okay with that too. And I like all my thick cards are in top loaders. Like, I literally keep them in top load, this is a sleeve, a top loader, and then a top loader sleeve. 3 layers, because the top loader sleeve seals it up nicely and protects. I'm not going to get scratches on my top loader when I look at the cards. I like that. So that's how I saw them. I have no interest in getting those graded. Zero.
Right.
At this point, anyway. Yit says he was thinking about that, but I thought to leave it for now. I would leave it as it is. Lord, Ted Lasso. Yeah, what was I saying? John, I forget what I was saying, but thank you.
I don't know. Yeah.
Something else, Lasso. Bobby Burrell says maybe Beckett is BG's new gig. Maybe CH Carr says Big Bri, the Beckett guy. That would be awesome if that was where he was going. I'm gonna say I doubt it, but yeah, I guess you never know. Hobby Champs, back to the Gretzky case. Crazy thing about the Gretzky case is if you graded every single pack and got all PSA 8s, the case is only worth less than $2 million because a graded 8-pack sells for about $2,500. Yeah, so you can break that. You can open up that case, break it into boxes. You got 16 boxes, sell those for 200 grand each. 3.2 was that 3.2 million? If they're going to sell for 200 grand each, I don't know that they do. You open up the packs. Now you got however many packs that is worth $2,500 each. Yeah, as Dogwood says, it is wild for sure. Mark Santucci has a 52 mantle, but his is a reprint. Brett Miles, good evening to you, my friend. Great conversation. Really enjoying it. For the record, I am not a 10 flexer. Right on, Brett. Right on. No, I prefer to flex the card itself versus the card and the grade.
So this is the corollary to your Babe Ruth. It's a 64 mantle 1 PSA 1. Sorry, I can't quite get it to chime. And you can tell it's a 1 if you look real close, but it kind of looks more like a 6. So, buy the card, not the grade, right?
Such good value in that for you right there. Mid-Atlantic says, my most valuable cards are 1s, 1.5, and 2s, not 10s. I love it. I love it. And Brett says, I bet they're some of the most fun to look at too. Yeah, exactly. Like I want my cards to have character, and I love when my vintage card, I don't want a vintage card to be in perfect condition. And let me rephrase. I don't want my pre-war cards to look like they're in like perfect condition. Even some of my 50s cards, like I love my Gordie Howe rookie is in a PSA 4 holder. My Maurice Richard, same thing. And I love them in the condition they're in. And people say, why don't you regrade? Why don't you submit it? Maybe you'll get a 5. I mean, maybe before I sell those cards in 25 years from now, maybe at that point in time, I'll find a way to, find some arbitrage in there, find a way to really maximize the return for my estate, for my family. But until then, I love that my cards are undergraded. I think it's cool. And those ones I just mentioned, I had graded myself, and I'm cool with it. So one other thing I wanted to talk about tonight was Fanatics Events. So we know that they canceled the Orlando. First, they canceled a show in Pennsylvania. Then they canceled the Orlando show because of the hurricanes. And now we find out yesterday, well, at least I found out yesterday, that EJ Ferrer, this gentleman right here, this is his post on Instagram, Dynasty EJ. He says, I am forever grateful. My time at Fanatics has come to an end. Not even a year in. I am forever grateful for the opportunity to be a part of Fanatics Events, the launch of WWE World, and introduce Fanatics Fest to the world. The skill sets and experience I gained during my time there will last a lifetime. I wish my teammates the best in the future. Thank you to everybody. I'm proud. I am a proud product of the trading card hobby community and excited to see where this journey takes me next. Now, EJ is a great guy. I've known EJ ever since, even before he started at the Burbank Card. He's one of the original founders of the Burbank Card Show with Rob Veras from Burbank Sports Cards. And, now that's called the West Coast Card Show, I believe. And he left that card show to go to Fanatics, and now he's gone less than a year later. And my first question was, did he leave on his own or was he let go? So I asked him. He was let go. He did not leave on his own. And what does that mean about Fanatics Events? The fact that I believe he was like the leader of, well, not the leader. I think there was like one guy above him And then above him were above that guy was the executives. My perspective, I could be wrong on that, but he was pretty senior in the Fanatics Events division, and now he's gone. So my initial thought was, so is Fanatics Events done? Like, are they not going to be doing card shows? Is Fanatics Fest done? And he said no, he doesn't think those things are done, but he's done there. So the question is, like, what does that mean about Fanatics Events? What does it mean about will there be a New York show next year? Will there be a Los Angeles show in March or April? I don't know these answers, but he's a very well-liked person in this hobby. He is liked and respected by 99% of the people that I've ever come across in the hobby. Everyone loves this guy, EJ. He's just a super good guy. And it sends a bit of a signal to the market when you let someone like that go, because he is much loved and people are going to wonder why. And I'm not going to speculate why they let him go. I'll let you guys do that speculating, because I don't know what happened there. And he didn't tell me why he was let go. So I guess we'll have to find out what happens in due course. But the question really is, what signal does it send to the hobby? And how is that signal going to be interpreted? What are people going to think is going to come of Fanatics Events? And people that want to plan a trip to New York next year or to LA in March for the LA version, are they going to do that now? I think Fanatics Events, if it is still if it's still a going concern, needs to. I don't want to tell them what they need to do. They'll run their business, but I would like to see some messaging from them saying, what's next. Maybe they don't have to address the dismissal of EJ. That's no one's business, but at least message out there what is next on the calendar for that division. Those are kind of my thoughts on that. Let's see what you guys say. Vintage Card Collectors, if Fanatics schedules and cancels one more show, any remaining trust will be lost and their events are cooked until they schedule and have one. Vintage, the hobby has a short memory. Don't forget that. Don't forget that the hobby has a short memory. And if there's money to be made and cards to be bought and sold, people will go. So I don't know if they're cooked, but I hear what you're saying, and I think you're right though, in that they need to just follow through on the next one that they do. Now there could be, an event that occurs like another hurricane that they just can't do it, but maybe not. Hopefully they don't. Hopefully they don't. I guess time will tell on that. I just don't know for sure. Joe, any thoughts on the signal? EJ, I mean, you've been to all the Burbank shows. What do you think about his dismissal and what it means or might not mean?
100% EJ is a great guy, and talented in so much as, look at how the Burbank show amplified in short order. I don't know. I didn't attend, the New York City. I think you did, Jay Lee. So I'd be curious. I've heard sort of a disparity in experiences that lead me to believe that some people were blown away at what they encountered in New York City, and some people were nonplussed with their experience. And so not having any firsthand experience and not knowing what EJ might have been up against in terms of corporate, corporate ideas, and then his own sensibilities emerging, primarily, I would guess, out of, his experiences with Rob and the Burbank brand. I really can't comment other than to say that, that it's always more complex than meets the eye. But what was your experience like in New York City? Did you have a good time?
I thought it was awesome, man. It was an awesome. Listen, Fanatics Fest was a humongous event, and about a third of it was a card show. So it wasn't a card show. It was a fan fest, like a Comic Con. Imagine a Comic Con with an area for like Pokemon cards and Marvel cards, which I don't think I haven't been to a big Comic Con, so I can't really speak. I shouldn't really say that because I don't really know what to imagine there myself. But it was so much more than the card show. So it was an amazing event. I thought it was really well done, well attended. The card show was awesome. All the great vendors, great cards. I bought some great cards. I thought it was great. Now, I don't know what kind of revenue all the card vendors did because I wasn't a card vendor at the show, but my experience, I was just glad I got to go, man. I thought it was great. I really did. I want to just make a quick mention to Marin EDKCL on Instagram. If you're still there, come over to YouTube. I don't check the Instagram comments very often enough, but I'll read some of your comments. Football is the most watched sport. Vintage cards are the most underpriced. Can't disagree with those. He goes on to say, we need to start a company that values eye appeal. Well, NBA does that. Mike Baker Authenticated, and Fanatics Collect has the Fanatics Collect eye appeal designation. So there are companies that do that, but they're not slabbing themselves. So I think what Marin is saying really is there needs to be another like grading criteria that is worked into the overall grade. And maybe it is. I think PSA at one time, I remember when PSA introduced the half grade. Like they never had any half grades before. And when they introduced it, it was, I think part of the rationale for that was to account for eye appeal. So, but I think Marin is right. He says, I've been buying vintage cards with lower grade that is gorgeous. I love that's me, Marin. That's what I do too. He thinks, what do you think about eye appeal versus grade? I'm all about eye appeal, Marin. I'm all about eye appeal. Timepiece Esquire. I didn't see the comment about Bure and Fedorov. I didn't see it. I'm sorry. I must have just missed it somehow. My apologies. And you now, what about my comment? Skipped. I didn't mean to. Can you retype it? I can't go look for it again. Timepiece Esquire. That was just a total mistake on my part. I did not see it. Please go back and put it in there again. Simon, who we were just talking. Simon, we just had your YouTube account pulled up there, guys. Oh, right there. Simon 466 Cards. We were talking about you earlier. I don't know if you just got here or not. It says, good evening. WWE World is during WrestleMania weekend and has little to do with cards. Surprised that someone related to that show would be let go since it should still be happening in 2025. Yeah. Yep. So Simon's commenting on EJ's dismissal from Fanatics Events, but we can be surprised all we want. We don't know what's going on behind closed doors. And oftentimes in the hobby, we think that we do know what's going on. We think that we know more than we do a lot of the times. And it's important to sometimes understand that we don't, I think. So, but we'll see. It's interesting. Joe Casquela says EJ is the only card person there. I think he's talking about it at Fanatics Events. Unless there is someone there who knows our industry, not sure if the card portion of their events is even plausible. Now, Jay, this is the other founder. Okay, Jay is the other founder of the Burbank Card Show, along with EJ and Rob Barris from Burbank Sports. So, Jay, glad you're here. First of all, congratulations on the success of the West Coast Card Show. And so when Jay, raise the roof for Jay and the West Coast Card Show. When Jay tells us that EJ is the only card person there, I give that comment more credibility than I would if I didn't know who Jay was. But knowing who Jay was and his relationship with EJ, his relationship with EJ tells me that there might be something to this comment. So hopefully EJ lands on his feet somewhere. I'm sure he will. All you have to do is look at the comments on the post that he made. Right, Joe? I mean, everyone is like, oh, you'll be fine. You'll be fine. And I'm sure he will be.
Well, so what it brings up for me, Jay Lee, is, what is Fanatics North Star? I don't think ultimately, maybe I'm wrong, but they're a pretty big company and they've, in the apparel world, have been quite successful. Now, the card thing, that might not be their North Star. So, kind of thinking about what their direction and priorities are might give us some insight into, kind of in the context of what Jay's bringing up. I heard from a lot of people that the New York City event was amazing, and particularly for people that weren't necessarily in the card world. And I think at least some of us in the card world were hoping that an event like that would draw people into the card world. But keep in mind, Fanatics has, jerseys, all kinds of different ways of bringing in, revenue. And so, I don't know how that all shook down or how it's shaking down now, but I would imagine that there's some maybe discrepancy in what a card person, somebody that's, grounded and located in the card world, might be thinking of as high priorities versus, more, we want the lay person, the non-hobby person, to have a positive experience and associate it with Fanatics because they might be buying other stuff.
Well, EJ, I believe one of his key roles was dealer relations, vendor relations on the card show side of things, not on the other side. I think on the card show, that 30% of the square footage, it was card show. My understanding, it could be wrong. And that's where I think he adds a ton of value, because he's so well liked by everybody that those relationships, I think, are very important to the event itself, to the card show portion of it. And without him there, maybe Fanatics just thinks like, well, we got the dealer list now and they're going to come anyway. Maybe those relationships aren't as important to that division anymore. Again, speculating, have no idea. But Jay just piped in here. He says, EJ will be fine. He's young and has accomplished more than we all did at age 30. Just food for thought. November is when corporations review their year and make plans for next year. And I mean, we just heard today, or maybe in the last couple of days, and I just heard this from Hobby Content, that Fanatics, that their debt was just degraded by Moody's to right around like junk bond status, which just means that, like, are they going to be able to pay the interest payments on their existing debt, and what's the multiple like that? I watched a video on that, and I just don't know what Boston Card Hunter or Sports Card Madness did a video on it like today or yesterday. They dropped it.
Mm-hmm.
And so, these things are all kind of like, head count's a very important issue when it comes to an IPO, and company, head count it's not a good thing. It just means more cost of getting rid of people. If you acquire a company that has a head count that is too big that you don't like, you're often going to say to them, well, cut the head count, because when they bring them, when a company is acquired, now they're going to bring that company over, and they're going to want to have synergies, and synergies are often accomplished by reducing headcount at head offices, because you don't need two head offices anymore. You only need one. So that's what they do. They reduce headcount so that when they do acquire those staff, now they maybe don't have to pay them severance and all that. Let the old company do that. There's a whole bunch of moving parts there. I'm not great at explaining it, but a whole bunch of things going on there. Let's keep on going though. Laura said here, so along that line, what potential issues could this bring about for the West Coast Card Show and shops that have tied themselves to Fanatics? I don't know that I really understand how to answer that, so I'm just going to keep on going. Dogwood says, opinion on inscribed Future Watch autos. Is having the debut date worth the difference from a regular Future Watch auto? Not to me, Dogwood. I'm not personally. I don't like inscriptions. I like a clean card, and to me, an inscription just makes the card look messier. I'm in the minority. I understand that. People love inscriptions. And then, so basically a Future Watch auto is a hockey card that comes out, a rookie card that comes out in SP Authentic every year. There's 999 copies of that card, serially numbered, beautiful cards, always with an on-card auto. And the first 50 of those, so card 1 of 999, 2 of 99, up to 50 of 999, have an inscription where the player writes on the date of their first game, which to me is cool, but it doesn't really add much for me. I wouldn't pay a premium for it. I'm not a fan of them as a premium. I'm a fan of the card. I think it's a great, cool idea, but I would never pay a premium for it myself. Timepiece Esquire, we're getting your comment now. He says, it drives me crazy whenever I see a beautiful Fedorov or Bure jersey patch card, and it turns out to be a Ducks or Panthers card. I can't believe Bure scored 50 goals twice with Florida. Bure in a Vancouver jersey only. He wants Bure in a Vancouver jersey only. Yeah, I mean, I hear you. I just wish that Upper Deck would match the picture on the card to the uniform the memorabilia came from. I call that a Frankenstein card. They've got Sergei Fedorov is pictured with Detroit, but the memorabilia is from Anaheim, for example, where he played for a short time. I don't like that at all. So I hear your comment. Those are mine. I don't like it either. Simon was at his wife's birthday party tonight, so missed the mention of his channel. Well, it came up, man. You do some good work over there. Daniel A says it would be nice if MBA, Mike Baker Authenticated, came to the Toronto Expo. Yes, it would be. Yes, it would be. And Mike's a nice guy too. Yankees fan says Fanatics had their debt rating lowered again. They mentioned cost cutting coming. Well, there you have it. Cost cutting, headcount's an easy way. Well, sometimes an easy way to cut cost. Back to Timepiece Esquire. The fundamental question I've always had is why isn't every single sports fan also a card collector? If you like baseball, why not baseball cards? What is it about us that likes the sports and the cards? So I was thinking about something very similar to this today as I was driving in my car and I was listening to the local sports radio channel here, the Fan 960 here in Calgary. And I was listening to the one guy saying whatever they were talking about. And he said, oh yeah, we're going to talk about that on our show later tonight. And I thought to myself, I'm doing a show later tonight. And I thought to myself, how much more fun is it for us in the card world that we get to create, produce, but also consume sports card content that really addresses the sports themselves and the cards layered on, and the business and the hobby of cards layered onto the sports themselves. Whereas the guys that have podcasts about the sports, all they can really talk about is the sport and the games. We get to talk about the sports and the cards. And I think we're fortunate and blessed and lucky that we have that additional layer to talk about. Anyway, that's what I was thinking. But to Timepiece's comment here, I think the same thing. Not everybody collects, though. Not everybody has the collector gene in them, either active or dormant, but I think that many do. And I think that's where Fanatics does have access to so many sports fans, because they have their whole customer list from their apparel business for going back many years. They have the marketing power behind them. I mean, that we know they're putting money into marketing. We've seen it. So I think it's just a matter of tapping into those collectors or those sports fans who are not yet collecting. And I think it's going to happen. And it's not going to be all of them, but it's going to be some of them, because some of them just don't care about having baseball cards or hockey cards. But I think many of them do. Here, Brett Miles just pipes in. He'll probably say it more succinctly than I was. He says, not everybody's a collector. Some people like to go see live games, lots of them. Some people like memorabilia. I love that I found my little piece in this vast hobby that I truly enjoy. We love the hobby, but not everybody collects. And just like Brett says, not everybody is a collector or has we call it a gene. It's not a gene, but a propensity for it. Not everybody has that. But I'm still with you here, Timepiece Esquire, where I think that the hobby could grow by leaps and bounds. I don't know if it's going to 10x, but I think it could grow by leaps and bounds if every sports fan could get a taste of just how fun the hobby is.
Well, Jay Lee, let me chime in here with it's nature versus nurture and or both, right? So I believe there is some component of a gene. People have written books on the gene involved with collecting and acquiring and having your hoarding, all that stuff. But then on the nurture part, your lived experience, an early memory where you have a sort of epiphany or an aha or some kind of really cool experience that's associated with collecting cards, pulling something out of a pack. So my question for you is, do you have an early memory in your life that was just above and beyond anything, where you just said, like maybe that was the moment where you might have had the gene, predisposed, but then you had an experience that reinforced that gene to such a degree that, here we are 40, 50 years later.
Well, yeah, it's literally that long ago. I mean, I started off going to hockey games with my dad in Winnipeg when the Winnipeg Jets were in the WHA as a young kid, like in the mid to late 70s, the late 70s, like 77, 78. I'd go to those games. The old couple that sat beside us, I think we had season tickets. The old couple that sat beside us every game, the old lady, she must have been 80 back in those days. Although I was so young, she could have been 40 for all I know. For all I know now, right? We would bet 25 cents on the game, and I would always get the Winnipeg Jets, and they dominated back in those days. I would always win 25 cents from the old lady. I think it was fun for her. It was fun for me. And then, so I'm going to the games, and then I go to my cousin's house, who, you know, and I'm in my cousin's bedroom. He's got hockey cards like all over the floor, and I see them for the first time. That's my earliest memory. So it's like, oh, these are the players that I'm seeing on the ice when I go to the games with my dad. Like, that was really cool to me. But then fast forward to 1980, early 1983. The Winnipeg Jets in the NHL now had just drafted Dale Hawerchuk, first overall, the biggest prospect ever, one of the biggest prospects in like the history of hockey. That might be a bit of a stretch. And rest in peace, Dale Hawerchuk. But he was a monster of a prospect. Picked him first overall. They had a big signing downtown Winnipeg at Portage in Maine, which is like a major intersection as far as Winnipeg goes. And anyway, when O-Pee-Chee hockey came out on January 1st of 1983, I was ripping packs looking for that Dale Hawerchuk card. And that was probably when I started collecting sets. Okay, now there's numbers on the back of these cards. There's 396 of them every year. And so that's how I got into it. I've been collecting sets of O-Pee-Chee hockey, I guess, since 1983. But then I got into Topps baseball and Topps football and the 1981 or the 1980 basketball sets. I could still buy packs of those in the early 80s at my corner store. So it's all, to me, it was started with building those sets. The baseball, I didn't do basketball because there was none. Well, except for I didn't do it throughout the 80s, but I was doing football, baseball, and hockey throughout the 80s. So
what stands out to me in that story is the bridge between your experience of being at a hockey game, a hockey match, and then your cousins, was at the basement, like making that connection in your young, Jay Lee state, that like you had access to that thing, that you had those special memories. So anyway, I think that's a phenomenal connection there with probably all of us, because a lived experience where you're actually that close to the game, and then I can be that close through cards.
Do you have an experience like that got you into collecting, Joe?
I mean, somewhat similarly, I went to a lot of
Joe, you
that
froze
was right around the time I. Oh, sorry.
You're having a few issues there. Well, go ahead.
Yeah. Can you hear me? Okay. Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, it was mostly just connected to baseball and the Oakland A's in the 70s, and going out to see A's games, and then opening packs and seeing literally the color of the uniforms, and in that case, the kind of Kelly green of the A's, the green and yellow, and the same field that you would go, ride the BART out there to the Oakland Coliseum, which is probably never going to have a baseball game in it ever again, but it was that connection between a lived experience of being there with major league players, and then like being able to access them through the cardboard.
Yeah, makes sense to me. Okay, let's keep on going. Timepiece Esquire says, my concerned opinion is that Fanatics isn't in it to be a 50+ year card business. They just wanted to create excitement and pump and dump. I think when he means pump and dump, I think he's saying pump and dump the business itself, not just not specific cards. He says breaks that rob money from fans don't turn them into collectors. I mean, I don't know. There's price points for everybody. You don't, there's ways to get into the hobby. You don't have to go into breaks to get into the hobby. You can go to an LCS, buy some packs, and become a collector. There's different ways. I have a problem with the narrative that spending $2,000 on a pack of cards and getting nothing isn't going to bring collectors in. Those aren't collectors in the first place. We have no problem getting gamblers into the hobby. I think that's a good thing, because some of them will turn into collectors. And the bad part is they're not all going to stay. They're going to have a bad experience and they're going to lose money and leave. That's fine. We were never going to keep them around anyway. They were in to capitalize on all the collectors. So sayonara for all I'm concerned with. The ones that do end up staying in as collectors, glad to have you. Auburn 35 says the legal issue of the owner. Again, we're talking about this guy. Let me just bring him up here. We're talking about, where'd he go? Where's that picture of
Beckett? not Beckett.
Nope.
But
I don't have the picture handy, but this guy right here, Greg Lindbergh, who owns Beckett through his investment firm. He says that Auburn 35, the legal issues of the owner, Greg Lindbergh, are having an impact on Beckett. A past guest of Sports Cards Live, Scott Roskind actually happens to be the guy at the end of Cage's video. This is a reel. You'll see it'll change in a moment here, but Cage has Scott Roskind. Eventually it should change here in this reel. There it goes. So there's Kurt from Kurt's Card Care, who was nominated by Cage for Sexiest in the Hobby. Seablez has like 5 nominations in this reel. But anyway, at the end of this reel, I'll let it run. You have Scott Roskind. There's Patrick Ryan of Instagram fame. There's Seablez again. There's Jeremy Lee right there of Sports Cards Live. And then he'll go another Seablez. But he says a past guest of SCL, Scott Roskind, is one of several former Beckett employees trying to recover money. Allegedly, money is tied up in legal. So I think Scott Roskind is out. There's Jeff Wilson. Scott Roskind, I think, is next. And he's the guy that Cage refers to as the Beckett guy all the time, which is kind of funny. But I met, there's Scott. That's Scott right there. That's who Auburn 35 is referring to. And I've heard that too, that he's owed money from Beckett, and maybe money's tied up in legal. So that's an issue for people that Beckett owes money to. Vintage Card Collector says, plus a lot of people following sports are very casual. Not everyone is diehard. Very fair right there. Jay says, Jay, who is the founder of the West Coast Card Show, says, just my opinion. As much as I was impressed with Fanatics Fest New York, I don't know how a card show and an experience can go well together. That experience, I think, being the other 65% of the show. When Tom Brady walks the event side, people at the card show rush over. Yeah, I guess I don't know either. But Jay, I will say, I mean, I thought that was a great event overall. And the card show, when you were over on the card show side, it felt like a card show. And then you could make your way out and go visit the NHL setup, the MLB setup, the FIFA setup, the wrestling. They were all there too. Timepiece says cards are literally the foundation, and sadly, the only connection I have with my dad. We argue about everything and can't stand to be in a room together unless there's cards in it. It's a really important thing then, right? I mean, cards are, listen, this is the other thing, Joe, that just coming back from the Expo, where I had my networking event, we had about 140 people coming through. Rip Party the next night, the Hockey Cards Gong Show podcast has the Rip Party, was the first time, probably going to become an annual thing. And trade night, the Mint Ink trade night on Saturday night. All opportunities to form relationships and friendships and with people of common interest. And to me, that's so awesome and important. My best friends are through the hobby. Not all of them. I got some best friends. I got some really close friends that are from other places, but I have the most best friends through the hobby. One's on the screen with me right now. Some of you are watching. You know who you are. Laura says, agreed, Jeremy, the collecting gene. Mine was the opening of a 1975 Topps baseball pack and Pete Rose smiling back at me. Laura, I own one unopened pack of baseball. Just auditing myself. Yes. And it's 75 Topps, Laura. I love that set as well. I mean, back in the 80s, I was coveting the Brett and the Yount. I mean, who wasn't? Who wasn't? Jay goes on to say, with that, if Fanatics Fest New York's come back, there may not be a card show component in it. Maybe not. They just let go of the guy who had all the relationships with the vendor, so maybe not. Logan Ward from NASCAR Radio. What's going on, Logan? Good to see you, buddy. Brett Miles says, while I appreciate the concerns about the business component of this hobby, I have no doubt that sports cars will always be a part of our world. We just need to get comfy with the evolution and changes. Bingo. This is something that I've said a lot in my almost 5 years of doing the show, but not for a while. But I always say, as long as there are sports, there will be people. Sorry, how do I say it? Because I haven't said it in so long. As long as there are people, there will be sports. And as long as there are sports, so there will be sports cards. So I agree. I don't think sports cards are going anywhere either. Motorcycle Mark says, back in the day, hoops packs were see-through in that you could make out the card on the back. Order was always the same. You knew if a David Robinson rookie was in it. My local card shop owner did. I hope he wasn't taking all those great packs, because that was a chase card back then. I remember those hoops, those plastic packs. And boy, that chase for the David Robinson, both David Robinsons, was hot and heavy back then. Mid-Atlantic says that don't forget, in addition to apparel and collectibles, the third leg of Fanatics' long-term business strategy is betting. Unfortunately, gotta believe it all merges together eventually. I mean, there is gamble. Sports cards, there's gamble in opening sports cards. There's no gamble in buying a vintage card that you love. Like, there's no gamble in this. There's no gamble in me buying this card. The other thing about the, Fanatics' intentions in the hobby, in my opinion, is that it doesn't really matter to me what their intentions are, because I don't collect ultra modern. Now, it matters to me in that so many fellow hobbyists do collect ultra modern and enjoy the breaking experience and opening up ultra modern product. I just don't do that. So, you can collect other things. And a lot of people, even young people, go back and buy historical sets or cards from older sets, vintage cards, because it's fun. It's fun to learn about the history of the sports that we love to collect. So
is Mid-Atlantic getting into the idea, though, that in terms of money making, that betting has become, and because a lot of my friends that are not hobby, collectors of cards are troubled by how prevalent betting has become, with DraftKings and all these different sites that now kind of almost embed the betting aspect on sporting events into the experience of viewing sporting events. And I'm curious about that. For my buddies, they're like, doesn't that lead into corruption? I don't know if that's what we're talking about here, but maybe Mid-Atlantic's just kind of referencing that in terms of where the money can be made and where the focus might be, Fanatics may have very little incentive to, think about innovating cardboard or the hobby experience or curating events around the hobby, and much, much, much more around gambling. Not what you pull out of a pack, but the literal,
right. Well, Fanatics is a holding company at this point, right? They've got the betting business, they've got the trading card business, which is really Tops, I believe. They have the events business. These are all separate businesses with different presidents and managers. So I don't think that the betting business is really impacting, from an operational perspective, is impacting the sports card business. I don't think that just because they have a betting company that's going to impact how Tops is running trading cards. Maybe some little things here and there, but I don't think that that's really going to have a huge impact on it. Now, unless it comes from the world of going IPOing, M&A, being bought or something like that. If they have to reposition the structure of one of these divisions in order to be attractive for an IPO, for the investment bankers or a potential acquirer, which I don't think is the case, but you never know. I don't think that these things really impact each other unless they are prepping everything for an IPO, in which case they might have to say, okay, we're going to trim some of our overhead, but we're going to leave the betting business alone because it's way more profitable, and we're going to trim over on events or over on trading cards, that kind of thing. Then it could have an impact.
I guess my point was just their emphases, their focus may just not be as
but who's they? The manager? Yeah, because right. The Tops management, they're not working on anything else, so they're still focused on Tops. So that's why I don't know that.
Well, so more about this kind of business than I do, but up in the C-suite, and allocation of resources, numbers of peoples in the organization, that kind of stuff. I guess that's where I'm coming from. Not so much the humans that are there trying to do the best they can to produce, Tops, debut or whatever.
And I think you're right about that, because that's where we're seeing. We've talked about, November is coming around. An IPO is apparently on the horizon for Fanatics, so they are they are, and Michael Rubin, listen, I don't know Michael Rubin, but I think that, he's a big thinker. He's got a big vision, and that vision likely includes an IPO. And when you are going public like that, you have to position yourself for it. You don't just take the business as is and go public. You take the business as it is, you bring in all the investment bankers, and they tell you what you need to do to go public, and you do those things. And that means shave overhead and headcount. And that's what they've done. That's why maybe you're right, Joe. Maybe we're going to leave the betting business alone. We're going to trim our headcount in the trading card world or events. Okay, let's go to some next. Motorcycle Mark says he kept those packs for himself. I bought packs for you, learned the truth. Damn, don't remember what that's about, Mark. Sorry about that. Mark Santucci, though, Vita Blue, Mr. October, Jim Hunter, Raleigh Fingers, all great cards from 75 tops, no doubt. The Professor says on a recent Hockey Cards Gong Show co-host episode where I co-hosted, I discussed Hobby Insider. What are my plans for HI? So what Professor is getting at is, you guys remember the old days of message boards? And I mean, I know Blowout is still going strong, but even before Blowout, you go back to the early 2000s, like maybe even in the late 90s, there was the Beckett message boards. That was social media for the hobby back in the day. All of us collectors back in like 99, 2001 and 2, we lived on Beckett. I remember I'd come home from work and I'd go straight to my computer and get on the Beckett message boards. I'd spend 2 hours at the time. My girlfriend, who was living with me at the time, hated that I'd go to those Beckett message boards, but that's where I went. And Beckett was making, I mean, this is under Dr. Beckett's leadership, maybe back in the day, maybe a good decision, a bad decision, but they basically closed up the Beckett message boards. So all these collectors had to find new places to live on the internet. Well, the hockey collectors went to Hobby Insider, hobbyinsider.net. Still exists to this day. I own that website to this day. It's a whole community. Not a ton of action, but it's a community still. The basketball guys went to Freedom Cardboard. The baseball guys went to Sports Card Forum. So did the football guys. And then those communities grew and grew and grew until Blowout entered the scene and somehow became the biggest message board community in the hobby. So that just sets the context for the Professor's comment here. Hobby Insider continued to be the home to the hockey collectors. There wasn't much action in the other sport sub-forums, but the hockey was where all the action was. And that website was owned by a guy named Bruce Findley. He was a second owner. I don't know when he bought it, maybe 03, and he sold it, or maybe 08 or something. And I bought it from him in 2012, and I've owned it ever since. And it's really, since I've owned it, Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and YouTube and Discord, and Blowout, all these other communities, online communities, have had a big impact on the hobby insiders of the world. And I don't put a lot of resources into it or really talk about it anymore. It's just really its own little thing with a bunch of members who've been on there 20 years. So in any event, that's what hobbyinsider.net is. And what are my plans for HI? HI is what we call it, HI, Hobby Insider. My plans right now, Professor, are let it do its thing. And, it's on an ancient bulletin system, which is unsupported. And it's probably just going to die a slow death at this point because it doesn't have a lot of action. And the I go there. I posted on there today, just keeping it going. It doesn't have a lot of news coming on. So I hope that answers your question, Professor. Robert Scott says, my parents were antique dealers when I was 8 to 12 years old, and I'd help them set up 70s. Dad took me to live auction, Robert Scott, who I got to spend some quality time with at the Expo last week. Again, so very colorful. I love the 75 tops baseball. Timepiece Esquire, ultra modern. I collect his hockey cards. Also seem guilty of this, Jeremy. I don't collect any ultra modern other sports. As far as hockey goes, I will pick up the odd insert card. That's it though. I'm not opening it. Timepiece Esquire. I'm not opening the product. Like I'm not going to the store and opening them up. But I do buy the odd card. If I like it, I'll buy a single for sure. Mid-Atlantic pipes in again and says, I just think Fanatics will be pushing collectors into the betting side of their business as it develops. And I don't think they will be focused on the interests of true collectors. Yeah, I mean, they're going to market to everybody. And if you're a collector who, it's a two-way street. Like I don't blame capitalism. Really, that's the world we live in North America. And if you are susceptible to the marketing strategies and you're going to become a gambler because of that, listen, I mean, I don't know. I don't love it. I wouldn't want my kids to turn into gamblers. I'm not a gambler. Like I play poker, but I consider that a series of investment decisions. I don't consider that gambling, even though I'm a pretty loose poker player. I don't like being bluffed. So I'm like a calling station. I will call you so you can't bluff me. The other time I do fold. Don't get me wrong. I do fold, but I hate being bluffed. I hate when you're bluffed and then someone shows you the bluff. Like that's one of my biggest pet peeves in poker.
You'd rather pay to see those cards.
I will. Yeah. I've been playing in the same home game this is our 20-year anniversary this year. We started in 2004. And my buddies at my poker game, they know that it's really hard to bluff me. So, but anyway, I don't gamble on sports. I don't gamble on blackjack or roulette or any of that stuff. I just don't do it. I love watching Seablaz gamble on sports. I get a kick out of it. But I guess my point is like, yeah, I don't love that it's all kind of commingled right now. But you make your own. I think you have to be responsible for your decisions in life, and you have to be accountable for your decisions, and you have to know what companies are trying to appeal to your weaknesses through their marketing. And if you're going to fall for it, I mean, that's you're gonna have to deal with those consequences. So are they going to try to push collectors to it? They could try all they want to push me to gamble. They're not going to be successful. And I think that's going to be the case for a lot of people who are like have been collectors for a long time. Unless you're also a gambler, then have at it. Gamble away. I don't know. I know that wasn't the most succinct, but Laura says, as of November 1st, no IPO date has been set for Fanatics, which is not sitting well with Bloomberg. Okay, there you go. Logan Ward says the PSA collectors boards are fairly strong. Yep, strong with all the set registry people and that's great. I think a lot of those people are trading cards between themselves too. I don't visit those boards, but good to know that they're still going strong. Logan. Brett Miles says, what are the interests of true collectors in a broad stroke? What are the interests of true collectors? So that comes back to the comment here from Mid-Atlantic says, I don't think they, being Fanatics, will be focused on the interests of true collectors. The fact of the matter is, I think that they might not be focused on it, but the sports card, we have to keep in mind, guys, we call it the hobby. The hobby is only a part of the overall industry. It's truly an industry now. The industry is bigger than the hobby in many ways. We hobbyists, we collectors, we have to find our place in the industry. And we can do that. So coming back to this comment here, what will they be focused on the interests of true collectors? Well, true collectors can go buy, if they want to collect a base set every year, go buy the cheap stuff. There's very little gamble in that. Very little gamble. No one's forcing you to go spend $2,000 or $8,000 on a pack of Mercury or $2,000 on a pack of National Treasures. No one's forcing you to do that. So they don't have to focus on true collectors in order to provide true collectors a nice product every year. You can go buy Upper Deck Flagship Hockey or O-Pee-Chee Platinum for pretty cheap, or Prism Basketball or whatever, Tops Basketball eventually, regular Tops Flagship Baseball. Those are in the interest of true collectors. I mean, you have to look at the whole suite of offerings there, I think. And I don't think that they need to be focused on the interests of true collectors on everything that they do. but give true collectors something to collect at least every year, and give them something at every price point, because some true collectors are multi-millionaires who can afford to dump 50 grand a month on sports cards and do a little gambling at the same time. The other thing about true collectors is that true collectors have 140 years of sports collectibles, sports cards to go back and buy. I'm not worried about 2024 basketball or baseball products personally, or hockey or basketball. I know I'm only speaking for myself there and a few others who are like me, but I'm not concerned about this year's products. I'm just not. I'm a true collector. Fanatics has no impact on how I'm going to enjoy the hobby at all. They can produce a nice card show for me to go to, or a nice event. They can provide me with a Fanatics Collect platform for me to buy and sell cards on and do shows for. That's great. But they don't have any impact on how I collect. So I don't know. So back to Brett's question here. What are the interests of true collectors? It's a broad stroke. It is a broad stroke. I don't know if I just summed it up there or not, but I'd be curious to see what Mid-Atlantic says as a response to Brett's comment there. I think it's a fair question to ask. Yitz like my comment, a series of investment decisions. Right. You got to make a decision pre-flop, on the flop, the turn, and the river. Yitz, and every time you're raised, you got to make a decision. So I think you know what I'm talking about. Motorcycle Mark says it's gambling until someone brings a CT scanner to your case of mercury. That's a threat that won't let me even gamble on a product like that. Yeah, fair. The word that Motorcycle Mark uses here that I think is key is threat. It is a threat, and it's a threat to the integrity of those products. And I think that's a serious concern. I think I forget who it is. There's one or two other content creators out there who have said that they've said that they don't think that the hobby realizes the threat that the CT scanning issue has. I think it's a serious threat on ultra modern products, like just new products every year, especially ones that have big hits in them. I think it is a threat. I think it's a serious threat. And I think that could be a serious threat to the existence of LCSs and distributors, because the only way around that, well, not the only way, but the way that comes to mind for me is direct to consumer. But, God forbid that happens, because there's, I love my LCS. I know we all love our LCSs, and they're a key part. They're community builders. They advertise the products in the hobby. They're part of bringing new people in, giving them a local experience all over the place. So I hope that's not the case. Brett Miles says the industry is bigger than the hobby, 100%. The hobby lives inside this trading card industry, guys, at least in the modern version of it, right? There is no industry. Well, I guess there is some industry for vintage cards and, cards up to whatever, say in the last millennium, let's even say. There is industry, supplies, grading, card shows, all these things are industries, but you can pretty much do that from the comfort of your own home without any of those things as well, if you want to. Laura says it's not forcing you, in quotes, it's exposure through social media, right? I agree with that. But, you also have to have some control over what you let in. We can see advertisements for gambling or anything, alcohol, cigarettes, anything all the time. Cannabis where it's legal doesn't mean you're all of a sudden going to go use it or drink it or consume it. But some people will, and that is a concern. And that's why they need support systems around them, those people. And they need to know their weaknesses and have support for them, I would say. Brett Miles is saying I'm on fire. Love it. Thank you, Brett. You're on fire too. Motorcycle Mark says Upper Deck E-Pack is cool in that it's adding new wrinkles into the hobby by creating tasks and quests, foiling cards, ultimate quest game. Those things are fun to me. Upper Deck E-Pack's a very successful channel of distribution for Upper Deck. All the card companies have these digital distribution channels now. And if, God forbid, LCSs ever go away, you're still going to be able to buy cards from the manufacturers, I think. Logan Ward says, if the card companies stop producing cards today, it wouldn't bother me. Like you say, there's still 140 years of cards to collect. It would bother me a little bit, Logan, because, Connor Bedard has his rookie cards this year. I'm not touching them. I mean, it's just a recipe it's a way. If you hate money, buy those cards. But if you like money, don't buy those cards, because you could buy them cheaper down the road. Anyway, 4 years from now, 3 years from now, if and when Connor Bedard is established as, a generational player, I'm going to want a few of his cards. So I'm going to want the card companies to make those cards for me so I can buy them, and that's just one case, same thing goes for a lot of players, and a lot of us look at it differently for a lot of players, but that's where I fall when it comes to the ultra modern. I don't, I'm not buying a lot of, if I am, I'm buying Sidney Crosby's and Alex Ovechkin's and Connor McDavid's, Wayne Gretzky's, the players that I know give me joy and that, will hopefully down the road, when I do eventually sell, retain some value. But buying the hot rookie of the year every year is just it's a recipe for financial disaster. But that's what people do. Connor Bedards are outselling Sidney Crosby's right now. Makes no sense. Absolutely no sense. And Jay says, a way to prevent CT scanners is to put dummy and redemption cards, so all big hits will be mail-in moving forward. However, manufacturers won't do it, as it won't give the same excitement in breaking. Exactly. It's been something like, I know that Michael Rubin said one of the things he wants to do away with is redemptions. That's what card companies want to do, is get rid of redemptions, not bring in more of them. So it's a drastic move to take all the big hits out of product and make them redemptions. I mean, it's a backward step. There has to be another way to do it. And I don't know what that is. I say there has to, maybe there isn't, and maybe it's direct to consumer. That hurts LCSs. So what do? How do they pivot from there? How do they adapt to that? Because I think they live off of every product that comes out. I don't think very few LCSs. Now, Burbank Sports Cards is one of them. My local here, Eastridge, is good at it. I don't think many LCSs are good at the singles game, both attracting buyers for them and buying them themselves and understanding how to play that game, run that business. But the singles game, I don't know. I don't know if there's enough money in it, enough volume, enough deal velocity to make a business of it without having wax, unless they get into the TCG. A lot of card shops I talk to say the TCG is kind of what keeps the doors open for them a lot of time, or at least covers the overhead. I don't know.
It's like a dichotomy, the yin and yang of the hobby is that ripping wax and then, more deliberate, intentional acquisition.
Right. Is there enough of that to keep LCSs afloat? I mean, you'd think the problem they have is they would now be competing with all the repackers that are going to card shows and buying it 80-85% of value. And now they're going to have to go buy it 80-85% to sell it 100, maybe a bit more because they're an LCS. But is that spread enough to keep them in business? Can they sell enough cards to do it? Now, the other thing that comes to mind there to me is like, at that point, do you need an LCS? You could just go completely digital, because the reason why some of these guys have opened stores, at least in Canada that I'm aware of, is in order to get Upper Deck product. You have to be a bricks and mortar to get Upper Deck product. So if you're not getting Upper Deck product anymore because of the fear of the CT scanning, then you don't need an LCS anymore. You can just go online, which is the direction the world seems to be going anyway. But then we lose these local communities, which we all love so much. So it's a tough situation. Hopefully someone really smarter than all of us, or at least smarter than me and you, Joe, comes along and finds a fix for this issue. We'll see. Good comment, Jay. Thank you. Mid-Atlantic, Motorcycle Mark, yeah. UD Redemption Manager enters the chat. Yeah, your job is secure, Mr. UD Redemption Manager, and everybody else. Mid-Atlantic says collectors are end users, long-term holders. I just want the producers to think, care, and predominantly focus on that community over other market participants. I think that's a utopia, Mid-Atlantic. That's a utopia that you want the producers to do that. Don't get your hopes up. Don't get your hopes up that that's going to be the case outside of the collector, outside of the collector SKUs that come out every year. That's what you're going to get, because it is the gambling that is driving the business right now. It's the gambling And by gamma, I'm talking about it's the group breaking. It's the expensive, very expensive, not only the group breaks, but also just the personal breaks, It's that's driving these products. Manufacturers are building products for breakers now because they're the ones that are running through all the product. Most LCSs have a breaker division now, or a breaker in the shop. That's the hobby has evolved and changed. It's never going to go back. Never say never. It's unlikely to ever go back. It'll probably change into something totally different than we see right now. 15 years ago, maybe say 20 years ago, the group break concept was unborn. It wasn't there yet. And the hobby totally changed within 20 years. 20 years from now, it could totally change again. It could be all direct to consumer, no distributors, no LCSs. Hopefully there's still card shows. And some LCSs will find a way to survive. The real, innovative guys that find ways to adapt and pivot, add other revenue streams into their bricks and mortar store. So they're not only relying on selling singles. Who knows what it'll be. Joe, you got something to say?
No, I mean, this whole conversation is just kind of making me think about my relationship to wax and new releases, because like I'm along with vintage baseball and vintage basketball. I am an ultra modern basketball and modern basketball card collector, but I don't have a single Victor Wembanyama card because it just seems too fraught with the continued release and saturation in the market of so many releases, and I'd rather be able to sit back and kind of cherry pick what I think amounts to good value. And yet in that cherry picking, which you might do, say, for a Connor Bedard card as well, someone's losing money along the way, right? Somebody is playing the cost of opening the wax and then, transactions kind of, narrowing down the scope of what is perceived as value. I mean, time in and of itself is part of the refining of how we see a particular, value or card in the market. So I don't know. It's just interesting to think about where are we in relation to particularly a market that seems to be less and less viable. I agree with you that breakers are driving the market, but from what I hear, breaks are getting less and less popular, and breakers are in some cases having to pivot and find new ways to participate, or even just find an income. So I don't know.
Repacks. Yeah, they're doing a lot of moving to repacks, a lot of them. Guys, we got to take a quick little moment here and do the Mintink $50 giveaway for those of you that are still here. We got 153 people with us at the moment between all platforms. So if you want to come over to YouTube, you can enter. Guys, get started right now, if you don't mind. And I'm going to mark my spot for comments so I can come back to it. Type in if you want to put in the chat, hashtag Mintink98. You will be entered to win a $50 gift card that is good on mintink.ca. And I'm going to show you the Mintink website. There's the Mintink website right there. You can come to mintink.ca and you can go, and I was checking it out earlier. You can go to shop now. You get a bunch of options, but one of the ones I like is singles. You can search by singles, graded sports, graded TCG, all your new product that we were talking about, sports cards here, pre-order. You can pre-order on there, shop all products, stuff on sale. They are the exclusive. Now we're sports cards here, but they are the exclusive Canadian distributor for V-Friends. If that's your thing, they got Pokemon and TCG, non-sports supplies, other collectibles. You can spend $50 anywhere you want on their website if you win the $50 giveaway that Mintink is doing here on Sports Cards Live every Saturday night through the end of the year that we're doing a show. So please feel free to put hashtag Mintink98 into the chat. We're showing only 14 entries, and YouTube right now has over 70 people, 70 of you on YouTube, and only 14. I'm seeing more on the chat. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You can and only do it once. If you do it more than once, it's only going to count 1. 11 up to yeah, man. No, not many people. Oh, there's number 15. We'll give you guys a minute to get them in. Some of you guys are behind on the show as well, which I understand. So I'll leave that up for a moment and go back to the comments to get through some of those here. Yitz here says TCG is the quantity, sports cards is the quality at an LCS. Yeah, I've seen that for sure. Brett Miles says, I can absolutely appreciate that Mid-Atlantic. I can absolutely appreciate that Mid-Atlantic. I feel like as a collector, I need to meet them halfway in the sense that there are other aspects of the hobby in play. Breakers, absolutely. Perfect example. Motorcycle Mark says, my UD Redemption Manager comment was mocking Upper Deck in that their Redemption Manager stole millions of dollars. That's true. Upper Deck's Redemption Manager stole millions of dollars of cards in 3 months. That was an issue there. I don't know much about that, unfortunately, and actually, but you're right about that, Mark. I did hear about it. He says, the only Redemption Manager they want will be one with no hands. Laura says, why do I need a breaker to help me collect what I love? You don't. You don't need a breaker to help you collect what you love. I think, some people enjoy the experience. The group break experience is an experience. It's just like, why do I need to go to a restaurant for someone to make me dinner? I don't. I can make it at home. I can grocery shop and make but I'm going to pay a premium to go to a restaurant and have that experience. And breaking has become an experience. And a lot of these breakers are very entertaining, and they are providing the entertainment value. They are. Why do I need to go to a movie and watch a movie when I can stay at home and read a book, or when I can go on YouTube and watch something there? Well, it's the experience, right? Jay says, whether the market goes up or down, whether LCSs lessen, as a promoter, I don't think card shows will disappear. The community enjoys the face-to-face interactions. 100%, Jay. If card shows disappeared, I would be very sad. I love card shows. I live for card shows. Literally live for them. They're my favorite things to do. Mark is here but not entering. Yes, if you've won before, please don't enter again. Thank you, Mark. I couldn't decide here says, found a box of sealed 1981 sports trading cards. Is it worth me taking into a card shop? It depends what you have there. You couldn't decide because 1981, there's some good products and some not so good products. But if you don't know much about it, you want to learn about it, sure. Take it into a card shop. They will likely help you learn. I see that Yellow Shirt Relics is here. So that's my guy. Sean, what's going on, buddy? Good to see you. Not local to me in Calgary, but we see each other at all the shows. And good to see you. How's Jax doing? Buddy? Good to see you. Glad you're there. I love when we do these minting giveaways. I get to see some of the people that aren't really speaking up in the comments, and it's nice to know that some of you guys are here. LA Collection, good to see Mookie Chilson in the house. Soccer Ball Master, Yitz is here. YYC Vintage, Michael. Don't think we've seen you. Jay, welcome. My guy, Yellow Shirt, Lantern still here. Yount fan, Kurt Renaud. Hobby Champs is entering. Logan says, set up at a card show today. So much fun. There you go. For sure. What's up, bro? Good to see you, man. Good to see you. LA Collection is here. What's going on? Happy to see all of you. Jack is good. Good to hear. All right, guys. Well, I think we're going to run the giveaway here. We're giving you guys enough time here. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Good luck, everybody. Whoever wins, you need to send me an email. I need your email address. Our winner is the Professor. The Professor is our winner tonight.
It's about
Professor. I think we've emailed before, but just send me a quick email to sportscardsliveshow@gmail.com. And because it's your email that you'll get sent the gift card to. So send it to me. Oh my. Congratulations. Very happy for you. Wonderful stuff. Jake Dahl says, does anyone know how I can turn this off? You can't request combined shipping for items that require immediate payment. So that's like I think you're talking about is that an eBay question, Jake Dahl? I don't know the answer for, it's on eBay. You say down here. Professor from way downtown. That's right, Mookie. Does anyone know how I can turn this off? You can't request combined shipping for items that require immediate payment. I don't know, Jacob. I don't know. Laura says, well, he sure studied for it. Congratulations, Professor. Sorry, what was that, Joe?
Oh, I just say reach out to the seller. They usually have their internal hacks.
There you go. Reach out to the seller. That's actually a really good suggestion. Joe Poirot coming through from the co-pilot's chair. Appreciate that, Joe.
Little eBay background here and there.
There you go. There you go. All right. So let me see.
Oh, well, I didn't want to cut you off if you're transitioning, but
It's okay.
you may have talked about this, but I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to make a Toronto Expo. It's such a long journey from California. But the Van City card show caught my attention. Your reels, the locale, the beautiful event center that they had there. Did you ever talk about the Van City card show? I know you did the prologue to it all, but that looked really fun and like something I'd like to go to maybe next year.
Yeah, I'd love for you to come up to it. I'm sure I talked about it on an episode since it happened, but it was a great show. It was, they just put on really nice, the whole weekend. They had I did one of my networking events on the Friday night. It was awesome. It wasn't quite as busy as we get in Toronto, but we had a lot of people out. A private collection insurance sponsored the appetizers for that show. So that was really cool. If you guys need any insurance for your collectibles, private collection insurance, the founder's name is Enzo Ferrari. He's out of Toronto. Super nice guy, was set up at the Expo, and he's brought a really nice insurance package, but hit him up if you're interested, or I can hook you up with him if you want to get his contact information. But yeah, we had a great event on Thursday night. There was eBay put on or sponsored an event one of the nights, but it was just like a well thought out, I don't want to call it a card show. It was like a card event. It was really cool. Bret Hart was there. It was just a lot of fun. It was just a fun weekend. The card show itself, like Vancouver doesn't have a great reputation for being a market where people come and spend money. It has the reputation of the community out there that I'm aware of and that I've experienced before is a lot of tight pockets, a lot of hard negotiating and that kind of thing. And I kind of had a similar experience. My sales weren't through the roof or anything, but I sold a few cards, sold one big card that really made it all worthwhile. But without that sale, I wouldn't have had as great of a experience as a vendor. But the other vendors I talked to had a great show. Like my inventory the last couple of shows I've done just hasn't been as good as I'm used to having. So it's more my fault than anyone else's fault on that. So it was a great time. And I'll go again for sure, because I like the experience, the relationships, the community, the in-person stuff. Just all awesome. Just all awesome.
Awesome. I hope to get up there. The city looks beautiful too. So
yeah, it is. Vancouver is definitely beautiful. Mike Double V says on eBay, I add a bunch of items to my cart, email the seller. They usually can create an invoice with combined shipping. Mike, by the way, good to see you in Toronto. Okay, you guys can talk that through. I'll let you guys talk that one through. Brett Miles offering advice on that as well. Okay, so I was sort of transitioning, Joe. I was just kind of looking down at the notes, making sure that we've talked about everything that I wanted to talk about tonight. We talked about Expo at the beginning. We didn't talk about the Canada Post strike. Canada Post is on strike here. That's our U.S. Postal Service. It's that's the big mail service. They went on strike as of yesterday, and it's not a rotating strike. It's a full out strike. So what I think that's going to result in is some good deals on platforms like eBay, because some buyers might not want to buy thinking that the cards aren't going to get shipped right away or could take a while. This strike is going to end well before Christmas. It has to. It can't go through Christmas, right? It'll destroy the country if you can't ship Christmas presents to your loved ones. And it's also going to destroy businesses. So I think it's going to be very quick. But I think in the meantime, while it's on, watch eBay, guys. There could be some steals out there because of the Canada Post strike. That's what I'm looking for myself anyway. So I wanted to just mention that briefly. We talked about EJ and Fanatics. I want to talk about the Golden 100 that was ending tonight. I had that on my list of things, but we just didn't really get to it in time. It's probably over by now. but some amazing items on Golden here. Yeah, there's 0 time left. Golden had some sick items going on tonight. So, but I wanted to was hoping to get to that while they were live. Hopefully next time we'll be able to. I think we talked about, did we talk about this, guys? I forget if we really mentioned who exactly is the sexiest man in the hobby right now. It's that guy right there. I don't know him, but I'm a big fan of him. Sexiest man in the hobby. We talked about that. We did talk about that already. We talked about the case on Heritage, the O-Pee-Chee case. Next time on the show, though, next week on the show, I want to talk about the Hockey Hall of Fame, which had its induction this past Monday, just on Monday here in Toronto. Well, not here, but over in Toronto. And, I didn't mention this, but I also got to interview, I also got to interview one of the players going into Natalie Darwitz. I got to interview on the eBay stage at the Expo, and she was wonderful to interview. She's a U.S. Olympic hockey star, Joe, if you've heard of her, because you're American. But Natalie Darwitz she had a huge rivalry with Hayley Wickenheiser of Canadian women's hockey. Anyway, she was awesome. And so the Hall of Fame had their inductions on Monday. Jeremy Roenick go watch Jeremy Roenick's induction speech, guys. If you haven't, it's on YouTube. It's amazing. One of my favorite players. I was hoping to interview him. I didn't get to, unfortunately. But in any event, I want to talk about the 2025 NHL eligible class of hockey players, because it's a deep, deep class. And I just want to talk about it. So we're going to talk about that next week. I had it on for tonight, but we'll do it next week. But I've got some comments that are coming in here, guys. So let's see what you guys are talking about. Yellow Shirt Relics. He says, when I left the Van City show, I was walking beside Brett. I had no clue until I looked up. We had a good chat about it on the walk. Oh, Brett Miles. Brett Miles? Which Brett? Which Brett, Yellow Shirt? Rome Rand, who was at the Van City Cardinals, says the Vancouver location is second to none. I wonder if Toronto would ever move to a downtown convention center. I actually talked to the owner of the Expo about that after the Expo this time. And, the comments are how much more expensive it is for hotels downtown Toronto and the parking. The costs go up exponentially moving into downtown Toronto. I don't think it's going to happen, Rome. I don't want it to happen. The Toronto Expo is like right at the Toronto airport, literally right there. Like, you're not necessarily going to walk it, but it's on Airport Road. That's where the International Center is, on Airport Road. It's a 5-minute ride to the airport, not even drive, not even 5 minutes. So I hope they don't move. Motorcycle Mark, thanks for bringing up the Canada strike issue. You are welcome. Workers Unite says Mid-Atlantic. Yeah, I'm sure it'll work out. And I just really think that you're going to find some good deals on eBay in the next little bit. Yeah, man. What's up, Mo? Says, do you have any recommendations for non-Canada post shippers within Canada? Yeah, there are options. I mean, you've got UPS, you got FedEx, obviously for more, higher value card. If you're selling $5 cards, I wouldn't worry about that. But I've got some cards that I've sold to people. We're just going to wait it out. If you can be patient, you're going to get some steals. I think you're going to get some, maybe not steals, but you might get some better deals. I really think you will. So Dave Kaplan says Bedsy after hours. Connor Bedard, this is after hours, guys. We're a minute away from 3 hours now. Sports Cards Live, I feel like, is shifting a little bit now, guys. And let me explain what I mean. Brian Gray alluded to it 3 hours ago, but I find that we get more engagement and just more viewership from a show like this than a 2-hour one-on-one interview with somebody from the hobby. So I don't want to stop doing that. But my thought, and I want your guys' thoughts on this, because this is kind of something I've talked about it with Joe and a couple other people. But I think that I want Saturday Night Sports Cards Live to turn into like a 3-hour show where we're hitting different topics and we're having different people call in and coming on. That's what I want to turn it into, or at least shift it towards. And then you might remember where I started Sports Cards Light, and we've only done a couple episodes, but like a 1-hour show on a non-Saturday to bring those interviews and keep on doing those. So I'm thinking about doing that. If you guys like it, if the numbers show that this is the direction that Sports Cards Live can go, that's the direction it will go in. Saturday night will be like this. I'll bring on Joe, or if he's available, somebody else to kind of ride shotgun with me so I've got that moral support, kind of like if you ever watch Sports Card Radio, they're brothers. They got them both on there. I got Joe tonight. He's, you notice he's not doing a ton of talking, but he's always got great stuff to say, and he pipes in every so often. He's here for that and to be my moral support when he's available. He might not be available every Saturday, so I might need someone else to come in and do that. But bring on people. Brian Gray comes on. Leighton comes on. Other people. I'm working a list of people to send the link to, and if they want to come on, they can. So that's what I'm thinking for Saturday night. And then on other nights, we'll do 1-hour interviews with hobby people, collectors, industry insiders, other content creators. That's what I'm thinking. Okay. Professor says, by the way, Jeremy, you predicted the U.S. presidential election result on SCL. Thank you, Professor. Thank you for reminding me that I predicted it. Donald Trump. He's your president for the next 4 years. Brett Miles agrees. The Jeremy Roenick speech, the induction speech, was very nice. You guys just want to watch a guy talk from the heart and not like censor anything. That's Jeremy Roenick. He's a beauty. Dave Kaplan, who is a seller on eBay, says, we ship via alternative courier. No Canada Post issues. There you go, guys. There are other options out there, so don't hesitate to keep doing business with sports cards, even on eBay, through the Canada Post strike. Jake Dahl says, why is the Hockey Hall of Fame, why does it keep denying Alex McGillney? That's one of the names I have. We'll talk about that next week, Jake. We'll talk about that next week. Oh, Bret Hart. He's talking about Bret Hart, not Brett Miles. Bret Hart, the Hall of Fame wrestler. That's cool. That's cool, Sean, man. Congratulations on getting to talk to Bret Hart. Oh, Matthew Rocker in the house, 1956 Tops guy. Vancouver is so nice. Would love to move there and hit up the local card scene. By the way, there's a card show there this weekend. The Western Canada Sports Collectors Convention is going on this weekend, like yesterday, today, and tomorrow. It's run by Bossa Productions. Dale and his wife Angie run a wonderful show. I've been to it and set up. They had great signers. If you're in Vancouver tomorrow, go to the show.
Jaylee, what's your next live show?
Yeah, people keep asking me that. And Joe, it's like, unless something comes up that I'm unaware of right now, it's like the Expo. It's like the next Expo in April.
Oh.
Yeah, there's the Edmonton Expo, the Toronto Expo, and the Montreal Expo are all in April, May, and I'll be at those, probably all three of those shows.
You're not going to do West Coast? Probably not. I think
that's
February.
This weekend. Oh, no. You mean the old Burbank show?
Old Burbank, yeah.
Probably not. I'd love to, but
you know what?
I don't have. Sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
I just don't have the inventory to make it financially worthwhile for me to go there, get a booth,
right,
pay all the expenses, and take the time. It would. I think I'd be out of pocket more than I'd like to be, and then away from the family. For that weekend, if it's not going to be financially rewarding, I go to a lot of card shows and have those experiences.
Yep.
So I'd love to. I'll miss it, man. I'll miss it, especially I know you go. So.
No, but you know what I just realized? It's in February and it overlaps. It's the same weekend as the NBA All-Star Game. And the NBA All-Star Game this year is in San Francisco / Chase Center, as well as Oracle across the bay in Oakland, because they're doing a couple sessions in the old place that the Warriors used to play. So anyway, it's been a long dream of mine to attend an All-Star game, an NBA All-Star game, and not having to get in an airplane to do it makes it a little more economical, but it may mean I did already get tickets for the Saturday practice, which they're holding in Oakland, the old Oracle place that the Warriors used to play. So I'm excited about that, and I'm going with a friend, and so I'm probably not going to go to the West Coast Card Show this time around. But there's always another one.
So I won't miss you there because you won't be there anyway. All right. Well, there's always the next one for sure.
Yeah.
Professor says, will Yager now be eligible for the Hall of Fame? now that he announced his retirement. I think it's a 5-year buffer. Is it a 3 or a 5-year buffer? So not yet, Professor. It's a few years away. Mark Santucci says, care packages. How will anybody send out cards to Canada? Alternative shippers, I would say. That's right, Matthew. Hobby hangout style. But I want to talk, like, you know, I want to have topics to talk about and stuff. And for this show, there was no shortage of them. So I hope we get topics for next week as well. I'm sure we will. If not, we'll just bring on more people to talk about whatever it is you guys want to talk about. Brett Miles says 3-hour shows, monologue, sidekick, long couch, musical guest. I like it. There you go, Brett. Trying to build it into, you know, hey, SNL, SCL, Saturday Night Live, Sports Cards Live, right? This is Saturday night for sports card lovers. Foul Ball says Sports Card Radio, SCR, did their last show last week. Thursday are now open. Interesting. So they're done doing their show. They've been doing a Thursday night live stream for many, many months. It feels like a well-watched show, highly entertaining. I'm surprised they did why did they do their last show last week? Now, I did watch some of it and I kind of heard something, but I wasn't sure what I was hearing. I didn't watch the whole thing. So I'm sort of half surprised, but so he says Thursdays are now open. Well, and I just saw, Lantern here says I should do a Slab Shark show this coming Thursday because of all the Expo consignments, same style as the Fast and Furious MC Mondays. That's a great idea. And I would, Lantern, but I have another commitment that night. That is the monthly Fanatics Collect premiere auction that I've been doing for 3.5 years now with Adam Gray, the Real 27 guy. So I have a conflict. I can't do it this Thursday. I'm going to be doing the Fanatics premiere show, which is a real fun and a great show on its own. So I'll be doing that. I'm going to have to do any bidding on Slab Sharks while I'm running that show. That'll be fun and challenging, and I'm sure I'll miss a couple.
That's this coming Thursday, huh? The Fanatics premiere. Ooh, that should be good. Not that I bid on any of those cards, but I always like seeing what's going down. Yeah,
it's a fun show. That's this Thursday. And now I mentioned at the top of the show that we have MC Mondays this Monday. I was wrong. I totally misspoke. It's the Monday after. Now that I'm looking at my calendar, that's on the 25th is MC Monday's showcase. I do MC Monday showcase once a month, and it's usually the last Monday of the month. And I misspoke in my opening statements tonight, but that's going to be on the 25th. Laura, great show, Jeremy, Joe, Leighton, and chat. Jeremy, hope you have the WCCS in February. We can start a GoFundMe. Yeah, no, we're not doing no GoFundMes. Thank you, but thank you, Laura. I'd love to go for sure. Jeff McMahon says 3 years for Hall of Fame. So thank you, Jeff. There's a 3-year kind of delay between retiring and being eligible for the Hall of Fame in NHL hockey. So for the Hockey Hall of Fame, I should say. So thanks for, I said I wasn't sure if it was 3 or 5. Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate it. And the HHOF.com is the Hockey Hall of Fame's website. And it's a really great website. Lots of information, who's eligible, what their stats are in coming years, who's been eligible and not elect. Like Alexander McGillney is probably the name that creates the most controversy. People would love to see him get in. Curtis Joseph, Keith Kachuk. There's others too. Zetterberg was eligible this year for the first time, didn't get in, but his teammate Pavel Datsyuk did get in. There's others. Kovalev, Theron Fleury, Patrick Marleau, a few. Anyway, okay, we're at the end of the comments. We're well over 3 hours. We're going to wrap this up, guys. So I don't know. This is a long show. How should we end this, Joe? Just goodbye?
I just love that. Yeah, the new platform, innovating, and inviting, hobby celebrities near and far to come on in. That was cool. Brian Gray and Leighton, but I think the future looks bright for this format, and I'm excited.
Well, I appreciate that. And not just hobby celebrities. I mean, I want to open it up to other people too. Like to everybody watching and listening right now, if you'd like to jump on the show, send me an email. Because I don't just invite anybody on that I don't know. I want to see you face to face first. But if you would like to come on to let's call it the new Saturday Night Sports Cards Live type of show, send me an email and let me get to know you a little bit. And then I'll give you the link and you can come on and you don't, come on for a couple minutes, come on for 10 or 15 minutes, whatever it is, but you got to come with something to talk about. You got to have something. You're not just coming to sit there. You got to have a topic, something of interest that you can bring to the show. And I'd love to have you. And again, I'm trying to find where I can, my email address somewhere on here. Here it is. There, it's on the ticker right now. You can see these are all other ways to get a hold of me. The email address, if you want to email, you can reach me anywhere you want. But if you want to email me, it is sportscardsliveshow@gmail.com. So reach out to me. Let me know you're interested in coming on the show on a Saturday night for 5 minutes even. Doesn't matter. But bring something. Bring a statement or a concern or a question or something you're excited about or something you saw. And, we'll work on getting you on. I want to do that. And now that it's been kind of confirmed, if Sports Card Radio, because they've kind of been a bit of a call-in show, if they're not doing it anymore, well, listen, I'm no Sports Card Radio. I get that. We're two completely different types of content creators, but we both do live shows and we both have audiences, even though theirs is probably 10 times as big as mine, but that's fine. Maybe we can grow this one by doing more of that kind of stuff. So happy to do that. Thank you, Brett Miles. Tremendous show. Really enjoyed the conversation. Love the energy. Thank you, Brett. Love yours as well. Thank you, Mark Santucci. Yankees fan. Appreciate it. Professor says, thanks to Mintink for the giveaway and for SCL hosting it. You are welcome, Professor. All right, guys, we're going to wrap up. Shout out to the sexiest man in the hobby right there, everybody. Sexiest man alive in the hobby. It's a big joke, of course. I'm just glad that the Cage included me in his vote. And you can see here, if I go to hold on a second. If we go to Cage's, he says, who is the sexiest man? Vote below. And right here you vote for, Otia votes for Cage, but he adds all these things. He says, hit the like to vote for me. He has hit the like to vote for Seablez, Patrick Ryan Collection, Jeff Wilson, Kurt's Card Care, Signed and Slabbed. You can go in and vote. You can see I voted for everybody except myself. So, because I thought that would be silly. And then I just kind of had fun with it and did that because that's what he led it with. All right. Good night, Jeff McMahon. Good night, Mid-Atlantic. Robert Scott, good night to you. Guys, this is over. I want to thank Joe for being here and just being here to support me and adding all his great color to the show. Thank you to the chat. Thank you to Brian Gray for jumping on tonight and Leighton Sheldon as well. And hopefully we'll bring you guys more people next Saturday as well. This has been a ton of fun. With that, guys, this episode of Sports Cards Live for November the 16th, 2024 is now over.